Okay, welcome to the Thursday, September 25th, 2025 Town Council Budget Meeting. This meeting is hybrid and at Beckham Hall. We are going to start with a call to order and a roll call, starting by right.
Ellen 11.
Dan Enright.
And then online.
Geneva Shawnette.
Teddy Urko.
And myself, me and Fee. Action item 1A is a consideration of adoption of a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Telluride, Colorado, authorizing the acquisition of certain deed restricted real property known as 147 South Tomboy Street, 3C, Telluride, Colorado, 81435, White House, Telluride, Colorado, 81435, located within the Town of Telluride, San Miguel County, State of Colorado. We have Zoe to present.
Thank you. This is another first right of refusal brought to town council. Our deadline to exercise is tomorrow, so we needed to get it on this agenda. This is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, tier 2 unit within what we call the White House. The seller's preference would be for the town to purchase. I did get clarity. That's all of that they are interested is to have a quicker purchase and have the town to purchase it. I didn't get much background of why they had that preference. But the options would be then to put it into a lottery for the general public or for town staff to help us maintain our 30% goal of having our staff living in the town of Telluride. Yes, we have 5 staff interested and the rest of the information is within your packet. So I'll leave it up to you for discussion.
Do you have any thoughts?
We don't have to decide right now if needed the direction, just if we are going to exercise that first right.
I mean, I think if that's the seller's preference, it feels like easy to say yes to that. I know you just said we don't need to decide, but I would like to see this one go to lottery. I kind of think having our employee units in town constructed, because this is not town constructed, correct? The White House?
It was part of
Yeah.
mitigation. Yeah.
Okay. I kind of feel like there's something nice and clean
For
about having.
Element 52, wasn't it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
It was a separate deal where the developer turned the free market into a deed restricted complex
right.
upon compensation from the town.
That's right.
So there was, I think, one original mitigation unit only, and then we acquired all the rest and deed restricted them. But go ahead, sorry.
Thank you for that history, Kevin.
Yeah, I know it's not necessary, but I think there's something like clean about having our employee housing in town constructed units and letting these free market deed restricted stay in the general public.
I'm okay with that logic as well. The one sort of bigger topic that I don't think is an issue, but I think it's been raised before, so I'll just raise it again and hear thoughts or feedback, especially from staff, of if we are then sort of setting the precedent of town always buys and then puts it up to lottery, do we have the capacity both in terms of dollars and staff time to be accomplishing that? And that would be sort of my one hang up of this method moving forward.
The infinite answer is no, we
Yeah.
don't. And it is time consuming to do a lottery. Obviously that is going to be the future as we have changed the deed restrictions to require lotteries into the future. But it is definitely a time constraint for staff. As far as funding goes, obviously also not infinite. But the plan is to obviously sell it and get the money back. So there isn't too much of a deficit, but we are still learning there are additional costs that we wrap into the cost if needed, if any improvements or things along those lines. But we are doing a much more proactive job working with the seller to ensure those things are taken care of prior as well.
Teddy or Geneva? Geneva? You're muted.
Are there any more sort of major maintenance issues on this unit? I sort of remember that White House had some HOA dues issues and stuff, or am I misremembering?
I don't have that information, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, at this moment, let's buy it and then we'll talk about what to do with it later.
Great. Is there any other discussion?
I'll just throw in, I agree we should buy it. I'm in favor of this going to the lottery. The only way I can be swayed if we look at the HOA and determine that it needs work and we need to help them. I know staff will have a hard time putting more work on their plate, but that's tough to see until I see the information of what that might be. But at first thought, in favor of buying it and putting it in the lottery and letting it go.
And any HOA issues fall on the laps of the manager's office and legal team, but so we can look into that. But as of now, I think I have, go ahead.
No.
You've said anything. So we will exercise that first right. Do you want to provide staff the direction to put it into lottery, or do you want us to come back for additional conversation?
I'm lottery. Geneva just gave a thumbs up.
I am in favor of a lottery as well. So it's Teddy.
Great. Then I will let staff know.
Great. We need a
So you do
motion.
need a motion. It's an action item.
I move to adopt a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Telluride, Colorado, authorizing the acquisition of certain deed restricted property known as 147 South Tomboy Street, also known as the White House, Units 3C, located within the Town of Telluride, San Miguel County, State of Colorado. Should I provide direction to resell by lottery, or that's just inherent?
You can, I think it might make some sense if that's the direction.
And direct the town manager to put this unit up for resale to a qualified buyer by Town of Telluride's lottery process.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Dan, a second from Elena. Dan, how do you vote?
Dan, yes.
Elena, yes.
Online?
Geneva, yes.
And Teddy, yes.
Me and yes, motion passes 5-0. Okay, on to work sessions. We're gonna move to 2A, discussion of the general fund and revenue estimates, fees, and the capital fund. We have Kaylee Ranta here to present.
Make sure to move the mic close to you.
All right, thank you. Zoe will be helping out here today too. We'll start out going over the process, expectations and goals, the fund balance reserves, and then quickly touch on our recession plan that we have, tax forecasts for sales tax and real estate transfer tax, and then the general fund and our 3 capital funds. And I will turn it over to Zoe to introduce it.
Thanks. Yeah. So just a quick overview of the budget process and our expectations. So we did hold with our directors a budget retreat. So this is with all of us going over what we feel like are the needs of our individual departments. More importantly, the give and takes of the needs from other departments and understanding really what our capacity as an organization is and coming up with what we would like to accomplish this year. We then obviously worked with town council to refine and set those goals and objectives, which then really shine through within our budget itself. So we have prepared our initial draft, and the balanced budget is looked to be approved at our October 21st meeting. So this is the meeting that we will be discussing general fund and capital fund, and then October 9th, all of our other funds as well, with the adoption for the 21st. Fiscal policies, we have our goal is to have the general fund reserves meet or exceed our targets. Reminder of RET and sales tax. So 2025 RET is trending a little bit above budget, and sales tax is above budget as well. And Kaylee will go into that in more detail. And just focusing in on our budget approach for accuracy to avoid conservative or aggressive estimates. We'll also look at where we have trended with that, and we continue to refine with that budget approach. And for capital investment, we look to recommend funding deferred maintenance for facilities, streets, and safety is our priority. So for staffing, we always want to prioritize recruitment and retention, and we recommend more staff in order to reach town council goals. We look for tax assumptions So when we were making our estimates of what our revenues are going to look at, we look at peer input and our own internal trends. Again, we'll go into that into more detail here in a moment. And for our capital investment, we look at what are the significant needs for the upcoming projects that may require alternative funding as well. One of the things that we do want to hone in on that is new-ish since January 2024 is that we took over the management of Elaine's Place, and that it is still highly subsidized by our general fund, and that our housing remains a top priority. So those are some of the key things that we look at within our budget as well.
Thank you, Zoe. Zoe just went over our budget timeline, so I'm going to skip this slide. Our goal of the budget process is to create a balanced budget for the town to use as operating guidelines for the year. This means that recurring revenues must equal or exceed recurring expenditures, and this ensures the long-term financial sustainability of the town. Colorado does require cities and towns to prepare, present, and maintain balanced budgets. So if additional revenue sources are required to balance the budget, new revenue sources must be approved or fund balance is drawn down. And if additional revenues cannot be realized, then expenses must be reduced either through service reductions or the elimination of programs and purchases. And we do have a history of budgeting quite conservatively in our general and capital funds. For the general fund, our fund balance reserves, we have current adopted financial planning policies that state that the general fund should hold reserves of at least 30% of the fund balance. This has been as high as 35% in the past, and the 2026 requested budget in front of you has fund balance reserves of 67.2% or 12.3 million. So we're way above that 30% target. And the 2026 requested budget does show a net loss of $1.13 million. Of that net loss, we've been able to identify several one-time and emergency expenditures, such as scanning, master plan update, purchasing card software, training, moving the gondola fall extension, which will eventually be taken over by Smart, professional services. And then we've taken into account a 5-year average vacancy savings of $414,000, which would have an adjusted fund balance with a net loss of $159,000, which staff is comfortable with. We'll continue to review our large revenue sources prior to the October 21st meeting and see if we can feel comfortable increasing any of those before then. The general fund accounts for all financial resources of the town, except those required to be accounted for in another fund. It is the town's primary operating fund. So all staffing expenses are included in this fund other than staffing that is in an enterprise fund such as the water, wastewater, and housing funds.
And I am going to just encourage if anyone has questions at any time, please allow those.
And this slide shows how we've been budgeting very conservatively over the past several years, with the dark green being our budget and then the actual fund balance in the light green, which has been quite a bit higher. And that is due to both revenues being lower than actual and expenses being lower than actual. I budgeted higher than actual. And same with our capital fund. We've also been budgeting conservatively here. The capital fund accounts for general government capital projects and outlays, economic and cultural development, public works and government facility maintenance, and transportation subsidies. And it's primarily financed by that 3% real estate transfer tax. And we've just been building up this fund balance since 2022, and our 2025 projected, it is drawn down as several projects have been happening this year. We do have a recession plan in place. I don't think we need to go, or not in place. We have a recession plan. I don't think we need to go over all of the steps of it, but we have shown that we've been able to implement this when necessary. Okay, we'll start with our sales tax projections, and this is the 4.5% sales tax. 4% of that goes into the general fund and 0.5% goes into the affordable housing fund. For this year, we've started out with record months for our sales tax revenues. Through July, we were up 4.7%, and then looking at August, excluding lodging, it looks like an increase of about 13% for August compared to 2024. So staff is recommending a 3% increase from 2024 actuals for our 2026 budget, which would still be a decrease from what we project for this year.
Yep, and I will just kind of jump in. Staff feels comfortable with this for a number of reasons. One, we have had the new Rentalscape software, which has helped in our tax collection, which has shown a lot of these increases regardless of occupancy being flat or down, or other aspects. Our sales tax still remains strong in the destination. This is a historic trend. The town of Telluride is lucky enough to have not seen a downturn in our sales tax. I think only once in a decade period. Did I get that right, Kaylee? Yep.
2009, it decreased, and then 2020, it was pretty flat. Then we saw a huge increase.
But other than that, we have
Mhm.
always seen an increase within our sales tax.
I
Yep.
just want to comment that the majority of Film Fest fell in August this year, whereas not historically, but often that falls in September. So I just, as like a caution, I don't know if that's something you guys considered with that really high increase in August. Obviously, we also had all the Alder Wild Festival, but that's
It's
just something-
overall,
Okay.
it has increased, not
Okay.
just the month of August. So we are well over our budget by a good amount. So sales tax is
Over 4%
over what?
through July from 2024.
So that's where that is coming from as well. Our partners are budgeting flat, I believe, or down. But we, given our historic trends, and again, our conservative nature in our budget that we are trying to be more accurate on, feel comfortable with this percentage. And I will also add to our budget process, we are lucky enough to have our little finance committee. Little because we met once, so thank you for your time on that. We will be meeting twice.
We had 2 meetings.
Did we have 2 meetings?
Yeah.
Okay, Ashley and me, and
Yeah, we
very
get
grateful.
credit for all the time.
You definitely get
Okay.
credit for all the time. And I think, wait, is it an advisory? I can't say committee. Anyway, working on the title. But we're very grateful to have their input too, as we work through some of these decision points as well. So if Ashley, who's not here, or Mian, have any insight into some of those. Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I think overarchingly, I think one of the things that, we've adjusted for this year is that for the past few years, we have been very conservative, overly conservative. And, I will say candidly, like I was a very big proponent of that. But ultimately, we're not actually, we're not doing the very best that we possibly can if we are leaving projects or deferring maintenance because of that. And so I feel really comfortable with the course that has been set by staff.
And one more added talking point, as Kaylee mentioned in this beginning, our reserve and our reserve policies of 30%. We are going, what was the exact percentage? 67%. So we are well above our targets on that as well.
And we'll continue to monitor that revenue source in particular monthly.
Yep, as part of our process. And if
Yes.
we need to make adjustments
Yes.
mid-year, we can do that.
So this is a tough one, and I'll just add in 2 cents. Not that it's going to provide more clarity or a change of direction necessarily, but I think it is worth noting because the statewide trends largely, and I'm looking at an article from the Colorado Sun showing hotel occupancy across the state is down 2% through June. So we are beating the trend, and I think Telluride is strong. So again, I'm not calling for panic or anything, but just some of that conservatism in budgeting, I think, has a reason, and we're getting into the realm of crystal balls here, where it's just nobody is going to be able to say with 100% certainty what is going to happen within this next year. And I do feel a little more uncertainty perhaps this year than in other years. So if there was a year where I feel like a little more conservatism in the forms of budgeting are warranted, this might be the year. 3% growth is not a not conservative increase. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we're being unreasonable by any means, but this is, I think the general economic trends, both in our state and in our nation, leave me with a little bit of hesitancy, and I do want to make sure we don't throw that philosophy completely out the window.
I do love when you and I like flip flop positions. So interesting. I have always been really fiscally conservative, and I mean, and more than most, I think we all know that I'm looking at occupancy trends constantly. I think that the increase is, it's not a lot. Ultimately, I think the other thing, and we did talk about this in one of the meetings, was specifically what levers we would be able to pull should we start to see trends that are not in line with what we're predicting. And I feel really comfortable that we've got those. We're going to be a little bit more, we're going to monitor this a little bit more actively throughout the course of the year so that we're not going to get to a point where we have to scramble, but we are going to be able to sort of reduce specific elements should we need to, if we do start to see things going in the way that is not what we intended or what we thought was going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think now is necessarily the time, but perhaps at another time we have a conversation about what that specifically looks like and entails.
Perfect. Oh, I think Geneva.
I'm cool with this recommendation. I think that people put a lot of thought into it, and 3% is theoretically what inflation should be. So it's kind of flat in a way of looking at it. So I'm a fan of this recommendation from staff and the small group that discussed it. Thanks.
He gave a thumbs up.
Okay, moving on to our real estate transfer tax revenue projections. The original budget for 2025 is $6,618,470. As of today, we have collected $5.187 million in real estate transfer tax. So I think conservatively, we're recommending a projected year end of 6.5 million. I think that will probably come in higher, and we'll also continue to look at that one as we get closer to the October 21st meeting. And then we're recommending $6 million for the 2026 budget. And this revenue source is definitely harder to predict than sales taxes.
Anyone else have any comments?
Might have been in here, Kaylee, but can you remind me what how that 6 million budget, compared to other previous year's budget numbers for RET? Thank you.
There you
I knew
go.
it wasn't there. Thank you.
So we've been conservatively budgeting the RET revenue, especially since 2020 when it increased a lot.
I mean, Teddy, do you want to weigh in any? I mean, you are literally at a real estate conference right now, so.
Yeah. I think it's fair. I don't see, any reason to go below that. If we're going to hit those numbers, or close to it this year, keep in mind overall for San Miguel County, we're probably about 27% off in dollar volume. So to hit that number with that decrease, which takes us almost to a pace of pre-pandemic, I'm confident that's a pretty fair number. And I don't expect another big drop, another 25%. So I think we'll be okay.
Perfect. Any other comments?
Okay, and then this is just all of our governmental funds that we have, and today we're going over the general fund and our 3 capital funds, the capital fund, the reserve capital improvement fund, and the street bridge and alley fund, and then we'll talk a little bit about the child development fund too, since it's subsidized by the general fund. For the general fund, well, for all of our funds, we have put them into a 1-page summary with the same revenue and expense categories. And I'll just go over the categories and what revenues are included in each of those categories for the general fund. First of all, we have taxes, which makes up 65% of the 2026 budgeted revenue. That includes sales and use tax, property tax, motor vehicle tax, and franchise tax. And then the fees category includes business and building licenses are the largest part of that. Liquor, tobacco, marijuana, vendor, animal, and STR licenses, and then that STR administrative fee, as well as the festival attendance fee and building permits. Intergovernmental revenues include the cigarette tax, Marshall School Resource Officer, which is reimbursed 50% by the school district, and retail marijuana sales. Charges for services include Harkin zoning fees and resource recovery fees. Fines and forfeitures include traffic fines, municipal code violations, sales tax late fees, and then the parks and recreation fees are campground, recreation, pool revenue, showers, field and pavilion rentals, and reservation fees. And then we have contributions and transfers, which make up 8% of the 2026 general fund revenues. These transfers ensure that utility and enterprise funds pay their fair share of administrative costs. Utility rates should be set to cover the full operating cost, including administration, preventing subsidization by the general fund, mainly in the way of taxes. And this allocation method applies a percentage of department costs to cover administrative expenses across all funds. As a reminder, again, some revenues come off the top of the general fund: sales tax, property, sales and use tax, property tax, and business licenses. 15% of that immediately gets transferred to the reserve capital improvement fund, and 5% to the open space fund. And then another 74% of the business license revenue is required to go towards marketing. Our 2026 general fund budget has a beginning fund balance of $13.4 million, total revenues of 19.9, expenditures of 21.1, for that net loss of $1.13 million, and then the ending fund balance of 12.2, or 67.2% of reserves. And this just shows how much of our revenues come from taxes, that 65%. For sales taxes, we just talked about, we are recommending a 3% increase from 2024 actuals for our 2026 budget. The property tax revenue is increased by 7%, which is limited by the town charter. Interest income, we've built in a decrease of 50 basis points by the end of 2025, and then another 50 basis points for 2026. Our business license revenue is flat compared to the 2025 budget. And then revenues related to building permits are projected to decrease by 15% in 2026. And then a 5% increase in campground fees and 5% in pool fees. Some just general expenditures that don't really apply to each department, which we'll go through after this. We've included a 2%, that should be 2026 expenditures. 2% market increase as of January 3rd and a 3% merit increase on July 4th for all staff. Labor costs do account for a majority of our general fund budget at 57.59%.
I might pause you quickly, Kaylee,
Yes.
just to go back. So in the past, we have been asking for just a strict merit increase for staff through our compensation analysis and how we are now working with staff to maintain a competitive foothold in the market. We are now separating that out to have a, what we call a cost of labor increase annually, which would happen at the beginning of the year. And then a merit increase that is strictly tied, which is tied to merit, but it's across the board for a 3% merit increase. So I just wanted to point out that difference.
The 2% market increase, is that the cost of labor?
Yep.
Okay.
And we work with our consultants to help with that and our peer community.
Why the different dates?
We have the different dates. One, for budgeting, it's helpful. Two, we moved to a single performance timeline. So in the past, it was everyone had a different date that they would be getting their merit. So now it is very much aligned. And we want to make sure that we have the performance process available for that first half of the year to maintain that. So just to help with budget and the process in itself.
And then we've increased our health accruals by 14% based on preliminary numbers received from our insurer. We will continue to look at that one as well if we get some updated numbers from them. And I'm gonna turn it over to you again.
Okay, so this is a new one too, unfortunately. So we've had conversations with the ski resort, who I believe is here to help discuss this point as well. They will no longer be offering us the merchant pass. So this would be an impact to our budget for this year, of about $92,000. Obviously, that would change into the future, but we still feel like, again, to be a competitor in our labor pool to provide a ski pass is critical for our staff. So we don't want to take away that benefit, which also is called a wellness benefit here. So to maintain that availability, we would incur the full cost of this. And the decisions from our partners, obviously, doesn't have an extreme budgetary impact. It does have a budgetary impact here. But obviously the relationship and that, we've had the merchant pass for a very, very long time. I don't even have the year. So this is a shift for all of us. And again, if council has questions, I think the ski resort is here to address those.
How many people are on, like, from a public perspective, Tiff?
Not too many. I see maybe 3.
Okay.
We do have John Miller online from Telski as well, and then a few in the room.
Okay. I guess we can start. I don't know, Steve or Laura, do you feel like you want to weigh in on the decision?
Sure.
Just for some perspective?
Oh, you know what?
Either one's fine, or the debt.
The table would be great for now. I need that mic on. Sorry about that.
I mean, it's not that many people. Morning, thank you.
Of course.
So in your budget process, what you just went over, you're forecasting an increase in sales tax. Unfortunately, from the ski area side, we're taking a lot more conservative approach for this winter. Our paid skier days the last few years have been going down. So for our operating plan for the winter, we're expecting our paid skiers to go down yet again, which again affects the revenue for the operations, whether it's the capital improvements, which we just spent over 8 million this summer on items that no one will ever see, but they're there for the impact of snowmaking, safety, our lift operations. Hopefully, we want to try to extend our season. And to be honest with you, we're not, we've gone out after groups, and the airline program doesn't really help support what we're trying to do. But anyhow, we're trying to manage our expectations properly, just like you are with your budgeting. And we're looking at all our programs. We've discounted a little bit more on the early season prices, again, to extend the season. And as a company, we just have to understand, just like you are, the budgeting of employees, paying our employees. We have 1,600 employees in the winter. You have a lot, we probably have a few more. We have expenses that we have to pay for, so we looked at all our programs, we made adjustments. This is one of the adjustments we made, and we know it's a big change, but we all need to try to stay in business just like you guys are, so that's the justification. And if you have questions, go ahead.
I can appreciate that. Obviously, we all understand the realities of business. I think I'm disappointed about this. This is a benefit that we obviously feel our staff deserve. And this is 92,000 that we are going to now be asking our taxpayers to subsidize. And I guess the question is that now if we are asking our taxpayers to subsidize this, I mean, it begs the question, how else are our taxpayers subsidizing the employees of the ski resort, for example, or the ski resort itself? Do we, and I guess maybe Zoe, I would look to you, and I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and I had conversations with Steve, I think there's obviously lots of give and takes with the town government and the ski resort on how we assist each other with our operating costs. And that there are lots of current partnerships and potential future partnerships that benefit from that relationship. And it's not as small and pigeonholed into a $92,000 merchant pass. There's much more benefits that we go from, whether it's snowmaking or just helping with the cost of living for your staff in general, housing, childcare, transportation, so on and so on and so forth. Just the benefits that government provides to all of those, including specifically Telski employees, and then other things that we work with Telski specifically on to help with their operating costs. So I think there are lots of things at play within that particular conversation that go beyond just a merchant pass concept.
Right.
That we can look into further to
I mean,
see if there's opportunities to make up those costs elsewhere in that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we wouldn't be responsible to all of the taxpayers that are now being asked to cover this cost without analyzing where we can make up those revenues. And I hate the idea of it coming off of the employees of Telski, just like I hate it coming off of the employees of the town of Telluride or the employees within the town of Telluride that are now going to be asked to pay for this. So I think I would like us to maybe do a deep dive and actually get some true financials as to how, and maybe not in all circumstances. We don't have to talk about theoretical and conceptual projects we could work together on, but I think, we do as a community subsidize quite a bit for people that live and work here. And I think that if we are doing so in order to benefit one company or another, I think that we need to maybe create a policy around that.
Okay. We will certainly look into that, and I'm sure it will have impacts that can make up some of this
I believe
loss,
so.
if not
Yeah.
more. So that is definitely opening the door, and that I will happily look into.
Perfect. Thank you. Anyone else? Any questions? Awesome. Steve, thanks for coming and
Yeah,
giving us
no-
that perspective.
No problem.
Yeah, I
You got
appreciate it.
Okay, we also have, last year we did not make any FTE adjustments. So we've had a number of FTE requests. While we were not able to accomplish all of the requests, we have prioritized a few, one being an additional facility maintenance supervisor, which has a 45% allocated to the general fund. And this is to help with our facilities team, not only with our rental housing portfolio, but our town facilities as well. We added a senior planner position just to help with the seniority needed in that department at the moment, as those are very difficult positions to hire for. We wanted to keep that position open, and added a part-time seasonal special events coordinator to help with the park staff. We Stephanie's here if you have any additional questions as well, but there has always been a part-time special events coordinator. However, that role got moved into to help with park maintenance facilities. Oh, Stephanie, I'm sorry.
So this is the second year that we've made this request. It didn't make it through last year, but we've had a shared recreation and event coordinator position, which is not quite 50-50, but about 50% of their hours in the event season, May to September, do get allocated for some event coverage. The request is to fully create that into a recreation coordinator position, same pay grade, same details, but there's enough workload on the recreation front for programming and facility operations for that to be fully recreation and have somebody more dedicated just during the event season, part-time on special event coverage and additional support. Because as you all know, we have a lot of events on
Thanks,
town
Steph.
property.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, run away.
Stephanie.
Thanks. I just knew I couldn't, yours is, it's not just like an FT request. It's-
Right.
it's a little more involved, so I appreciate that.
And going into 2025 after our audit, our beginning fund balance was $1.1 million higher than we projected during the budget process last fall. Again, our sales tax is ahead of budget right now, and our total revenues are trending above budget and expenditures are on track. And we will go through each department's budget request now. Zoe, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So just quickly, and then Tiff will go through hers in more detail, but I just want to remind everyone of each department and really what these departments look to accomplish. This is kind of foundational in why their budgets look as they do and how they prioritize things with their missions and their service description. I'll just kind of go through the missions of each just as a reminder, but for the clerks, it's to be reliable providers of information, quality service to the community and its residents, to be neutral, impartial, to perform all services ethically, honestly, and with integrity, and to provide a professional link between citizens, departments, boards, and committees to ensure equal terms and opportunities for all businesses, citizens, and to comply with state and local statutes. And they do so much to accomplish that mission. So now I'll toss it over to you.
I loved that we had to establish our mission statements a few years ago. So that's something that the clerks really take pride in. So thank you. Yeah, so I think all of you know
You can go to the
what
next
the
slide.
clerks do, but for budget request for 2026, I am asking for just $15,000 for scanning. I took a year off of scanning projects. We still have several long-term storage units just full of town records that need to get scanned. So with $15,000, we could do about 50 banker boxes next year. And so that's a lot of the records that we have down there. So that would make a huge dent in our long-term storage. And then 2026 focuses, next year, I'm really going to focus on written procedures. We have a lot of things in place already right now, like the Colorado Municipal Records Retention Schedule, but staff doesn't always know how to apply it. And so I'd like to get some procedures written for that, as well as accessibility to make sure that all of our boards and commissions packets that staff are including and third parties are including records in those that are accessible and meet the new state guidelines. And then just working on the digitization of our hard copy records to make, increase transparency and accessibility for the public.
Thank you, Tiff. Any questions for Tiff? Great. Appreciate all you do.
Thank you.
We'll move over to our community services department. I know Delaney is here to help with that. So Delaney is one of the lucky ones that gets split between this meeting and the October 9th meeting. So we will be focusing not on all of her divisions within the community services. Rental housing will come on October 9th, but for facilities, just a reminder of that mission is to maintain and improve the town's assets by providing proactive and comprehensive maintenance solutions, prioritizing safety, efficiency, and sustainability while ensuring long-term functionality of public buildings and housing units, transitioning from reactive emergency responses to planned maintenance and strategic asset management to safeguard the community's infrastructure and quality of life. So I'll let you handle the next slide. So thanks.
Thank you. We have been meeting earlier in the year with divisions from Public Works to get this Asset Essentials program going. There was a bit of a stall on that. We would really like, with our new facilities maintenance manager, Chris Humphreys, who started this week, shout out to Chris. We would really like to get that in place in 2026. It is a program that can track everything from a toilet seat to a generator at a facility for when the power goes out and everything in between, and periodic maintenance schedules. It's a really good tool for efficiency, and we are very focused on getting that put into place this year. We also want to do, people have different names for it. I think a capital resource plan might be something that you're familiar with as a name for it. We want to get a consultant in to help us build that for the housing and the other buildings, knowing that the comprehensive facilities plan is also in play and what is the best approach over the next few years in the meantime before those other buildings take effect. And then the comprehensive facilities maintenance plan, I skipped ahead a bit, that is tied into the Asset Essentials. It's scheduling those periodic maintenance items so that things don't fall behind and we get caught up and stay on track to keep all of our equipment and our assets in good working order. The temporary facilities maintenance shop has landed. They have not moved in fully yet. We're getting internet and electrical all worked out before they fully start utilizing that. But we have a team in place, a design team for the permanent facility. It is in conjunction with Public Works vehicle storage. So we're working collaboratively on that plan as well. We want to finalize and fine tune that design so that we can then press forward and maybe, fingers crossed, do initial construction if possible later on in 2026. And I have a few staff members on the maintenance staff who have expressed interest over and over in training opportunities, which would help build our team expertise. We are looking for opportunities for them to get trainings, HVAC training, electrical, which isn't as deep a dive because, as you may know, for plumbers and electricians, there's a really long runway for that. But just to get people trained up so that they have the expertise they need, and then we go out to contractors when necessary. Notable budget adjustments will be the costs to get Asset Essentials implemented. We are hoping to hire someone with the tech savvy to get that uploaded and train us in how to add things, monitor it, et cetera. And then for the capital improvement plan or resource capital plan, we also will be seeking a consultant for that.
What's the timing for the implementation of Asset Essentials?
If we can resurrect the collaborative meetings with Brightly Alpha, which is the company that is working with us through the Asset Essentials before the end of this year, my goal would be to see it by mid-year of 2026, at least for certain parts of the facilities division. It gets a little trickier. For example, the housing piece, it's just a lot of data to enter. So it's going to take a long time in coordination with tenants to be getting into their apartments to tag appliances, for example. The idea behind this is that you have assets tagged, and appliances is a high level, easy one to think about. Then we can track this refrigerator only lasted 5 years, and all the other ones from that same pool we purchased only lasted 5 years. We're not going to buy those anymore. Or we're going to seek a warranty from the manufacturer, things like that. So the housing part's going to be a really heavier lift, and we'll probably do it project by project, smaller projects first. The other buildings, Rebecca Hall, Town Hall, the museum, et cetera, I think that those by mid-year, we can get those handled. Housing will take a bit longer through the year.
So but like end of Q4, it will be completed?
Possibly, hopefully, yes. That is the ultimate goal. End of Q4, everything's online.
And I'll jump in. So Asset Essentials is in lots of different division's goals, and we are even considering looking at outside help to help expedite some of these things.
Perfect.
But it's wastewater, public works, and our facilities team that are, and park.
Parks, yeah.
Oh my God, everybody. So this is a huge transition for our organization as a whole, and we are all pooling those resources to have it implemented as efficiently as possible.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Wait, you gotta stay. There's one more. So quickly, the childcare division, as Kaylee mentioned, while it has its own fund, it's subsidized by the general fund. The mission here was to provide exceptional full-time childcare to toddlers ages 1 through 3, fostering a safe, nurturing, and developmentally appropriate environment that supports the well-being of children, strengths the community by enhancing regional economic sustainability by offering reliable childcare services. And for the next slide, I'll toss it to you, Delaney.
Thank you. In 2026, well, let me back up. In 2025, Elaine's Place started offering these quarterly, I don't know if they quite got 4 done in 25 yet, but these family events, and it's building community within their families and with the staff. They get to be outside of the traditional school sense, and they have a party or they have an event that they go to, and that's been very successful and well received by the families. They would like to continue that. 2 of the staff members had talked about having, for lack of a better term, a newsletter or maybe some kind of a pamphlet occasionally for families that just have parenting tips, because these are young parents, sometimes first-time parents with toddlers, and that is just more of a service to the parents. You know, this is normal. Don't worry about this. Here's some ideas for snacks that might be better, things like that. And we continue to collaborate with regional partners about the overarching issues with childcare and lack thereof in our community. And those have been going really well. I think we'll just try and maintain those and improve. Notable budget adjustments for 2026. After much research by the childcare director, Leah, shout out to Leah Roman, all of the other facilities in the region are raising their prices. The cost of childcare is not covering the costs of childcare. And it has been proposed that we at Elaine's Place raise the per day fee to $78 starting in January to match with the calendar year. She has already, I believe, had this discussion with at least some of the parents. It feels right to mirror the rates at the other facilities in town. There was some concern about raising the fees because you may remember Elaine's Place was having an issue with occupancy or attendance. They had a whole crew of kids graduate age-wise at the same exact time. And then the wait list was largely made up of kiddos that were under 1 year old or couldn't walk. And those are the 2 criteria. They have to be at least 1 year old and walking. They are, you'll be happy to know, 1 shy of being fully occupied. I don't know what word, I guess occupied is a good word for that. And on December 10th, I believe, the other kiddo who turns 1, they will be fully occupied, 100%.
Enrolled is the.
Very good. And just a note, the subsidy from the general fund that was anticipated for 2025 turned out to be significantly higher when the wage adjustments were made. It was not anticipated that the salary and benefit costs would create, that would have such a big jump. It was a bigger jump than we anticipated. And as we took over Elaine's Place, it was a private entity before, and they did not have a Colorado Shines rating. So they've been working through that this entire year. And by May, they expect to have that full accreditation, and that rating will open the door for even more grants at their disposal.
I'll just, yeah, I don't think anything that's been said or this is unreasonable. I just want to note that I believe this is the second fee adjustment for Elaine's Place in 2 years. And we should just be sensitive to that. I'm not saying we shouldn't follow this recommendation. Making sure that we're not operating at a gigantic loss is probably good, but like many other services we provide, it's not a business, it's a service. And we recognize the need for this in this community. So seems like we're still sort of threading that needle pretty well, but it is something we should be aware of and sensitive to moving forward.
And I'll jump in just with a hair more narrative that we're very grateful for Bright Futures and Strong Start in this community that help all of the childcare facilities remaining aligned, especially us as a government entity that has different resources than some of our other community partners. We want to be sensitive to the competitive nature of some of our pricing as well. So making sure that we are aligned with the community is another aspect of how we are setting these rates. And that's where this recommendation is also following.
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar to Dan, so I won't repeat what he said, but I had a similar kind of reaction to this. At the same time, like I really understand not undervaluing work that's being done in the private sector. Like I don't think that benefits the other childcare workers to kind of keep an arbitrarily low value on the service of childcare. At the same time, like I feel like this is one of the most important things in our community and one of the resources that we don't have enough of. And I was going to ask about like if we have scholarship programs or, you know, if this is prohibitively expensive. I know there's a waiting list, and so generally there's probably someone who can pay it, but do we offer any kind of scholarships to certain families?
So the town of Telluride does not, unless I'm wrong, but Bright Futures and Strong Start, that is the main foundation of one of the pillars of what they do. And they offer scholarships.
So the money gets funneled through Bright
Mhm.
Futures and Strong Start and then goes to paying Elaine's Place?
To the parents of Elaine's Place that apply.
Okay, okay. And that seems to work okay?
Yeah. And
Okay.
they did a presentation for us last year. The goal of it being, I forget the percentage of household income that they are trying to accomplish with their scholarships. I want to say 8 or 10.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And how their funds are able to meet that goal. And they're not usually able to make the 8%, but maybe it's the 10% or so on. It depends on that nexus. But that's how they distribute the funds.
Okay. I guess I would just throw this out there that if that ever feels like it's insufficient to help people in families in need, this would be a place that I would be really willing to subsidize more if it needed it. Because, you know, it doesn't seem like a huge jump, but if you're sending your kid to, you know, daycare several days out of the week, that really adds up. And so
Daycare is a huge.
yeah,
spend.
yeah, and like $6 a day over the course of a whole year. That definitely, I see how that can help with the budgeting issues, but I also I just don't want to. I don't want to. I see both sides of this, and I just wanted to express.
I think that's a great balance. And again, I think that's a way to balance making sure that we're not undervaluing the market for our private sector partners and making sure that we're aligned with them. But we can always look into scholarships at a future date should we feel like that's needed. I think that's a good way of not reducing our rates, but maintaining that community service. Any other questions or comments? Okay.
I mean, I think I agree with you guys too. I mean, I did the math really quickly. It's like $10 an hour per child. And like, if you are, for example, like a single starting like rookie ski patroller, like you're making 21, you know, so like half of your salary pre-tax is going to childcare. And childcare is something that I think we've all identified regionally as one of our like greatest weaknesses that we need to address. And I think we're working towards a solution for that. But, you know, it is it's, you know, it's very, very hard to have a family here. And without families here, we're not going to have a future here. And I think we need to work kind of tirelessly on this to make sure that we can make it affordable for people to be able to raise their children and stay here. I think the only other thing I had was like, I mean, I love that Leo wants to do the parenting tips, but like, I know how much time like that
That's
takes.
part of a Colorado Shines rating. You have to do this.
No, my point is like, can we do it with everybody? Like, can it just be like, I don't know if it's something like we can talk to Munchkins or whatever it is, but like.
That is what it is.
Okay.
So it is.
As long as
it's
it's not like doing a new one
No,
every
it's
like.
shared resources that they share, they have share out, but it is a necessary action to have a college.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I just want it to be as like time efficient as possible for her so she can focus on the kids. So, great. Thank you.
All right, Kaylee. So for finance, they look to provide relevant, timely, accurate financial data to administration, town council, and the citizens of the town of Telluride. Ensure effective management of our financial resources for the citizens of the town in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and provide short-term and long-term financial strategy. And with that,
Our focuses for 2026 are to continue working with our financial advisors on developing a comprehensive capital project strategy to support the maintenance and improvement of town infrastructure. We would like to implement a purchasing card system to streamline record keeping and submission processes, improving internal efficiency. And this should be a very low cost to the town with the rebates we would get on the cards. And then transition Cassell, which is our financial software, to a cloud-based platform as part of our ongoing efforts to eliminate on-premise network server infrastructure and enhance accessibility, security, and overall system efficiency. Other notable budget adjustments for 2026 are an annual increase in our audit fees. We have a 3-year agreement with them, so 2025 will be our 3rd year of that agreement. Every year, our software costs and sales tax as outsourcing increase. Credit card fees keep increasing, partly due to the change in monthly utility billing instead of bi-monthly, and an increase in credit card usage overall. And then our county treasurer fees are increasing 7% to be in line with that revenue source in the general fund. And that's it for new 2026 budget items.
Question. Just to make sure I understand, the credit card fees that we collect have increased, or our cost for credit card
cost,
usage?
yeah.
Is that something that I feel like, I don't know if that's something that, like, if there's an EFT option, if we like pass the credit card fee to.
We do for a lot of things.
You can't for utilities. I
Just
believe,
not
but,
that.
sometimes we do.
Okay.
And there is a fee if you use a credit card for sales tax payments.
Yeah.
So sometimes we do pass it on to the user, which is also shown up in the revenue.
okay, thanks, guys. That's great. Kristen. So Kristen, the Historic Preservation Planning and Building Department has 3 divisions. Obviously, we'll start with Historic Preservation first, with the goal, the mission to provide education, assistance, and guidance to the Historic and Architectural Review Commission, Town Council, property owners, and the public on the preservation of town's historic resources, and to ensure that the town is in alliance with the local, state, and federal best practices for the stewardship of Telluride's National Historic Landmark District. With that, I'll pass the next slide to you.
Sure. For this division of my department, our 2026 focuses are to improve procedures, policies, and tools to streamline the application review processes for our department, enhancing efficiency and customer service, and to develop educational programs and resources to promote community engagement and understanding of historic preservation, building and planning processes and values. So notable 2026 budget adjustments. budgeted $40,000 for professional services to cover senior level historic preservation consultant on a temporary part-time basis until we recruit and hire a full-time senior historic preservation planner. Funds will also cover consultants for special historic preservation projects as needed. And then notes, and this is for our department, no increase in fees in 2026. There's a 10% increase in fees every other year, and that was last year. So we won't see another increase until fiscal year 2027. Making a conservative estimate that there will be a 15% projected decrease in fee revenues in 2026 based on economic variables, and plan to apply and currently working on a grant application for funding for updating our historic and architectural survey, which was last completed in 2013. So looking to phase that into 2 phases based on obtaining grant funding, with half in 2026 and half in 2027. So the project won't be initiated until grant funding is obtained.
Any questions specifically for historic preservation? For planning, the mission is to provide administration guidance and enforcement of the town's adopted land use code for the purpose of ensuring that the town maintains a high quality of life and that the citizens live and work in a safe structures. Additionally, the department's mission is to ensure that all development and planning activities are consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan.
Thank you. So for the planning division, 2026 focuses are to complete and adopt the comprehensive plan, building on the adopted vision plan to guide the town's long-term priorities, development, and community values. Also to initiate the land use code update process following adoption of the comprehensive plan to align our regulations with the town's long-term vision and priorities. And finally, to explore opportunities to integrate public art and enhancements into town infrastructure, beginning with the coordinated installation at Silver Jack Stair. These are coming from town council priorities. And so our notable 2026 budget adjustments are $180,000 to complete the comprehensive plan in 2026. There had been budgeted $330,000 total per the RFP and subsequent contract, and that is divided between 2025 and 2026. So part of that project is going to wrap up in this fiscal year and then carry on into the next. This is partially grant funded. And then $20,000 for professional services to cover planning consultants, including the inception of the land use code updates project, GIS mapping, support services, and planning project studies as needed. There will be a bigger picture discussion later about GIS that our IT division will bring forward that is thinking about across departments, but this is just specific to our department at this point in time. Again, no increase in fees in 2026 with that 10% increase every other year. Again, 15% projected decrease in fee revenues in 2026 based on economic variables. And I plan to apply for grant funding to support priority planning division initiatives that might offset some of those expenses. And then moving on.
Dan has
Oh,
some
yes,
questions.
of course.
Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, what led to the conclusion for this department of that revenue decrease compared to the general fund, which we are still budgeting for a slight increase?
And that is incorporated within the overall general fund,
Yes.
just those revenues, but
Mhm.
But for specifically for the building department, we're projecting a 15% decrease in revenues for
Yes.
2026.
You know, I want to be very conservative in terms of how we estimate. We did in this year actually exceed projections. For next year, just thinking about the current economic variables, looking at how some projects are asking for extensions to have more time, and economic considerations are driving that need for more time to bring projects from their HARC CA to building permitting, which is when those revenues are collected. General sense of our team, based on our work with our builders, contractors, architects, that might be what happens in 2026, and just not wanting to over project
Sure. Yeah.
So,
All of that's fine. It's just curious. And as you heard me state earlier, I have my own concerns about the long-term economic forecast. So I'm not arguing, but it is notable to me that the general fund, we're budgeting an increase, and here within a department
Yeah.
that is funded by the
Sales
general
tax,
fund.
we're budgeting, it is a 3% increase over 2024 actuals, which is a 1% decrease from 2025 projected. To kind of put that in there for the sales tax piece. Which I definitely understand the point that you're trying to make as well.
Sure.
and I want to be realistic in terms of the budget. Clearly, if we exceed those projections, that would be beneficial, throughout the community. But I don't want to set expectations based on my understanding of where we are looking ahead.
Good enough. Yeah, no problem.
And I think that I think we are lay people, right? But I do know, a lot of people in the construction industry have very much, and even with things that we're doing as the town, like there is incredible concern about the tariff implication on wood and steel and really anything and everything that goes into what people are going to be using. And so I tend to think, I have heard from a number of people that their clients are pushing their projects off specific for that. And that's anecdotal information, but I appreciate that we're being conservative in this particular regard. And I hope that we do exceed it. I think that would be the best case scenario for everybody. But
And just one more comment on that. It's my understanding that our backlog of applications in Hark is not has shrunk. Like we don't have as many projects just waiting to be seen by the board. So we've kind of caught up, which I think implies that fewer people are applying for projects right now.
Before we move on another note, just help convince me of the logic behind that biannual or every other year increase of fees instead of a 5% annual. We moved for charges on utilities to a monthly, so sort of indicating the preference is more frequent, smaller charges or smaller increases. Obviously, charges and rate increases are different, obviously, but I sort of see perhaps some logic in smaller, more regular increases. But again, I'm not necessarily going to fight it, but just wanted to note it and hear your thoughts there. Thank you.
And I can say, and then others may have more institutional knowledge, but I sort of inherited that rhythm of every other year, 10% increase. And I was concerned about having increased it 10% last year, having any increase this year. That would be unexpected in the community. We can, and I definitely hear you, we can look to a reset, but that would be a year where if we were going to have 5%, there would be a year where we'd be coming down to 5% and not increasing that 10% and then leveling out. If that's something we wanted to consider moving forward, but this has just been that rhythm consistently over time that I'm carrying forward with concern for the building community and the other economic variables I was describing. I know that the last increase was noticed or felt by the building community. So
Yeah.
and if anyone else has any insights on that historic aspect, feel
I
free to
think-
jump in.
I think we would just need to do more of an analysis of that history, and reasoning behind it, and then any implications of anything that we would recommend to council, which we have not prepared at this time, but can do so
Absolutely.
for obviously the next year's increase at 10%.
Yeah, I think Kristen's anecdotal evidence or statement there of it being noticed maybe is more evidence of more regular, smaller increases might feel less impactful to that community instead of these less frequent but more sudden jumps. Again, I understand how there's logic either way. It's not a hill I need to die on one way or another, but I think it maybe even just a small survey or just a questionnaire to that community being like, do you have a preference between these two options? And that would give us a sense of, does this work? Or is it less impactful one way over the other?
It feels like a 6-to-1, half a dozen another situation. And if the community preferred the smaller yearly increases, unless there's a compelling reason to not do that, I kind of agree with Dan that a 10% increase is a little bit of a price shock or like a sticker shock, but I feel like a yearly increase might be a more gentle approach.
Yeah, and I think for us, I think it's a discussion, as I'm saying, for 2027. If
Yeah.
we did the increase last year with the promise of that is to account for 2 years of increases. So we would do 0 this year, but we can have this more lengthy conversation for the next time we look at the 10% increase, whether we want to split it for the 2 years, 5, or do a 10%. So I think that direction is understood and given. We'll look into that for our fee discussions for 2027.
Absolutely. I appreciate you raising this discussion topic, and I think it absolutely warrants further exploration. So thank you.
Moving on to building.
Great. The mission here is to safeguard the safety, sustainability, and quality of all of our structures in the town of Telluride by holding the highest standards in building practices and code compliance while remaining committed to fostering a built environment that reflects the community values of historic preservation, energy efficiency, and sustainable development.
Thank you. So our 2026 focuses for this division are to collaborate with consultants to conduct feasibility studies on potential additional energy code updates and amendments, including potential adoption of the low energy carbon code, and evaluate incentive programs supporting sustainable development and aligning with Climate Action Plan Goal BE 1.7 to strengthen energy efficiency codes. Also, to prepare for adoption of the 2026 International Wildland Urban Interface Code and explore potential associated revisions to the land use code and design guidelines to enhance wildfire resilience. So a number of our goals span different divisions of my department. So notable 2026 budget adjustments. I will say it again, but no increase in fees in 2026. 15% projected decrease in fee revenues in 2026 based on economic variables, and corresponding 15% reduction in professional services expenses for plumbing, electrical inspector, and third-party building code reviews. And then overall for my department, historic preservation, planning, and building, in 2025, actual revenues exceeded projected revenues. 3-year advance payment for the SmartGov platform was paid in 2025. So there will be no expenses in 2026 and 2027 for those annual renewals. And wanted to note, and you are all aware of this, but it does impact collected revenues, that town projects will require significant staff time of my team, but generate no department revenue. There are a lot of projects, projected. And I also wanted to mention that staff training expenses will be slightly elevated in 2026 as we onboard new staff and build a strong historic preservation planning and building team. So I'm making that investment in our team building and elevating our team's skill level to support this community moving forward.
Quick question.
Sure.
I keep saying this and then not doing what I say I'm going to do, but like I have been told that there is a new 2026 state regulations for fire
Yes.
mitigation. Is that included in
Yes.
all of this as well? Okay. I keep talking about it and then saying I'm going to read it and I haven't read it yet. So
I'm glad you brought
Okay.
that up.
it just wasn't specific. It didn't feel like it was specifically called out here.
Prepare for the adoption of the International Wildland Urban Interface. So that's the code that you're talking about.
That is the actual code. Okay. I was hearing it called something else. Okay, perfect.
No,
Great.
Thank you for that.
Awesome.
Okay. No questions? Great. Julia is remote, Tiffany. So for human resources, this department looks to foster an employee experience that maximizes individual and team performance and to support a culture and values that invite a workforce representative of the community that we serve. With that, we'll have Julia present.
Good morning, Council. Human Resources 2026 focuses outside of our general day-to-day operations will be to conduct an external compensation study. We switched to a biannual rhythm on that. So it is time again to work through that study with an external consultant, and we will look to engage in that early in the year so we can have it wrapped up by the time we start planning for our 2027 budget, believe it or not. So we have that on deck. We want to make sure that we are remaining competitive and that we're aligning with the employer of choice goal. We also want to continue to expand the SWORD inclusion training. SWORD stands for Strengths, Why, Opportunity Planning, Reviewing Weekly, and Daily Assessments. We launched this with our director cohort this year, and we'd like to push it down throughout the organization with the second cohort to continue to align these themes and this language throughout the organization. So those are the two main focuses. We are also looking to add a little bit of bandwidth in the actual HR, travel and training budget to support some of our internal staff development.
Great.
And happy to field any questions.
Looks great.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julia.
All right. It's you now, Zoe.
Oh, perfect. Planned my potty break. Great. So for the manager's office, our department is to provide strategic vision while executing the direction and policies of council, to provide leadership, organize and direct the activities of all town departments, and to foster local and regional relationships to ensure all community voices and collaboration amongst diverse interests are heard. So with that, we do not have too many notable budget adjustments. We are through our department, and we have other divisions that we will, under the manager's office, that we will go through. But things that didn't fall under those divisions are continuing the municipal facilities in partnership with the county to advance scenario C, continue our gondola planning under the intergovernmental agreement, to continue work on Project A and Project B as necessary, to ensure the equitable investment in community-driven design in alignment with our regional priorities, continuing our conversations around a wastewater authority, and looking for a regional agreement. And then for our business and economy, continuing our merchant meetings and our marketing strategy with the Telluride Tourism Board to ensure economic resilience. We're going to look to begin our discussions with the TTB for our 2027 contract and looking at options for a Chamber of Commerce model as well. We will also continue to progress for our goal of housing 30% of our town employees in dedicated town units. So through those focuses, the only budget adjustments that we have are slight. We looked really just aligning historical actuals, so increasing our books and subscriptions budget. I think a lot of the subscriptions that are collaborative with council, like CAST or other things, were being accounted for in the council budget, but actually paid for out of the manager's budget. So just kind of readjusting some of those pieces. We're modestly decreasing our software support. Again, just to align with our actuals a bit more. I did add in for council because I oversee the council budget as well. As I mentioned, books and subscriptions and business expensive have reduced to reflect these spending patterns. I also did a slight reduction. I don't know if I noted it here in council's travel and training. Travel and train more, you guys, is all I have to say to that. So I did do a slight reduction as that was, there was a wide variance of what was budgeted versus what was spent.
Great. This isn't so much about the budget, but are the merchant meetings like going well and providing a lot, like are doing what we wanted?
Yeah, so I've experienced this in other regions as well. We do it every other month, and it tends to be those that are interested and want to participate in them come consistently. But we don't have the full breadth of merchants yet participating. So I hope that they continue to try to come to those meetings. But I appreciate those that are loyal and dedicated to coming to them at this point. Great. Thank you. I'll be helping with the information technology division under the manager's office with the mission to actively support the town's initiatives, providing efficient tools, fostering professional development, automating processes, and prioritizing digital safety. We have made a lot of progress in the last few years within this division, who is dedicated to advancing and expanding the town's digital space by meeting each department's software and hardware requirements, but ensuring that the needs of the organization are met by integrating these systems to create a more streamlined and collaborative work environment. So with that, they're focusing, as Kristen mentioned, we're looking to expand multi-department GIS planning resources, like Asset Essentials or other ways the town is advancing in technology. We see values of doing this as an organization as a whole and not per department. GIS is one of those that, similar to Asset Essentials and all of those departments listed in that, they also would see value in GIS planning, which is Kristen's team, our planning, our parks team, public works, so on and so forth. They will continue to extend camera security throughout town facilities, and our fiber network to connect all these facilities, and really working with departments, streamlining workflows, optimizing existing applications, and expanding our AI tools for supervisors and administrative staff. And this is really to help with our internal capacity, reducing redundancy, and improving our service delivery across the organization. And I'm grateful for them working through that with each department as the organization as a whole. So notable budget adjustments. They trying to read what he wrote. So they are increasing our software for AI tools. So all management teams and administrative teams will now have access. Prior, it was strictly department heads and a few select other leaders. But that has been so successful that we are now branching that out further into our organization. We are also halfway through in 2025 in our in-house server, away from our in-house server infrastructure. Like Kaylee mentioned, moving some of her things to the cloud, but moving a number of our items to the cloud rather than keeping them on a server has been a goal, as those servers are reaching their end of life and are no longer the only tool that we have available for our storage abilities. And continue to reduce equipment maintenance and licensing expenses along with that action. Cybersecurity remains a top priority, and they are integrating a suite of tools designed to provide secure, resilient, and an environment to minimize our exposure to external threats. And so those are all of the things that will have an impact on the budget. I can try to answer questions if you have any questions. Thank you for not having any questions. All right. For our legal team, and I can pass this off to Kevin, but their mission is to have the town attorney as the legal representative of the town and will advise the council, manager, and town officials in matters relating to their official powers and duties, and perform such other duties as council may prescribe. Probably hand this, Kevin, because your next slide simply says that you have no notable budget adjustments for next year.
We had,
unless you do.
no, I don't think so, but I thought there was more in there than that.
Oh.
In any event, that's fine. The update on this is, we did add a third attorney last year. We're going to continue with that this year, of course. And we also, in the transition there, moved away from a legal assistant. So we don't have a legal assistant and attorneys. We have 3 licensed attorneys under Colorado law in the office right now. Some of the administrative work has been a little bit tricky. We've picked it up on our own. We also have brought Lauren Bloomsma back once every 3 weeks or so to handle some invoice work for us and some memorandum preparation for getting things into the town council packet. So no significant changes for 2026. A lot of the language that you saw on the mission, we're one of the entities that's actually in the Home Rule Charter. So a lot of that comes directly from the Home Rule Charter, which sets our mission and our legal responsibilities to both town council, other boards, and also to the public. So any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I do. And this is a theoretical, hypothetical kind of question, but like, should there be changes in November, do we feel like we would need to increase our legal budget and or the clerk's department staffing? And have we started to create a plan for that?
So we are not going to be building the budget on any hypotheticals, but would look to mid-year adjustments to make any necessary adjustments.
And we could wait till mid-year, you feel like? Okay. Great.
This is nitty gritty details, but looking at the breakdown of the attorney's department in the end of our packet on the individual, I'm just looking at the salaries and wages, and it doesn't appear to account for that with 3 FTEs, even for that cost of living increase for it. It's only a $5,000 nexus of this year's budget to the budget request of next year. So I just want to make sure that, excuse me, make sure that we account for that, since that's going to be for all departments. That should obviously be included in that as well.
I will make sure Kaylee and
Yes.
Julia look into that.
Take a look. I don't even handle that number. That's.
No, you do not.
Finance.
Julia and Kaylee do.
Yeah,
No departments handle their employee costs.
take a look at it though. What page was that on, Dan, that you were looking at?
Of course,
You had it pulled up.
67 of 80 of that packet attachment. I don't know in the full packet. Here, I can show you, Kevin. Right here, the GL code, 1045, 110.
Got it. Thanks.
Yes.
Okay. Next.
All right, Marshall's Department. I'll ask Josh to come up with the mission to protect and provide services. These partners. I don't know what your mission is. It looks like it got deleted.
Oh,
You
no.
keep going, and I'll pull it up. But important work unless you know what it is, but we'll go over your. I'll let you just skip through that. I'll go back to it.
Okay, so the really notable adjustments in our budget this year is we slightly decreased our professional service budget. We had allocated some money last year expecting Sergeant Lundy to attend a class that never came to fruition, and we didn't apply for that this year. So we adjusted accordingly with that. Travel and training remains a priority for our department. So with the increased cost of travel and classes, we slightly increased our budget for travel and training. We still look to post for reimbursements for travel and training, but that number is getting smaller every year on what the state's allocating to post. So we've tried to offset some of those expected costs with the increase in our budget. And then lastly, the biggest line item where we've had an increase was in our cameras, which is our body worn cameras, our car cameras. And the reason for that was our 5-year contract we had prior with Axon expired. So we had to sign a new 5-year contract. So all the costs went up. So as a state mandates us to have body worn cameras, they unfortunately don't provide any sort of funding or grants for those cameras. So it's on the cities or municipalities to fund that on their own. So that's the biggest reason of our line item increase. Pretty straightforward.
And for Chief Comp, your budget breakdown or the budget narrative was not in our packet.
Yeah, that's what I just noticed.
Yeah. So
So I'm going back and finding, I have it from the past, so I just have to find our old one, which I will then share.
I could provide numbers if you have specific questions on anything.
perhaps just offline, and we can review it ahead of our next meeting, just to go look over it. Not that there's any concern that I have particularly, but just this is the job of us, is to look at these numbers.
Understood.
So their breakdown was not in the packet?
No.
Okay. Look at that. Provide that to council as a
Um,
supplement.
I have a quick question.
That's right.
I feel like we've received a lot of community feedback on some traffic calming concerns. And I know that at one point when we talked about it in the summer, like beginning of the summer, that there was some equipment that maybe we don't have anymore because it's slightly antiquated or it's built into cars. Like, is there, I would love to I would love for us to address that in 2026 for the public. So I don't know if that's something that is included and we're just not talking about it right now, or if that's something that we could look to address.
Are you specifically talking about enforcement then? Or are you talking about more infrastructure? Because we do have infrastructure within the capital to talk about traffic calming, especially.
It would be both, but like, I think it's I guess I would say like it would be needed for the enforcement. So I don't know which way we categorize that, but I just want to make sure that we do address it.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be a conversation with Zoe and Public Works as well.
Cool, thank you. Anyone else? Easy. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
All right, well, Stephanie and her divisions, we'll start with the Recreation Division with the mission to enhance the quality of life for the Telluride community by offering diverse and accessible, active and passive recreational opportunities and programs that promote health, wellness, and community engagement for all ages and abilities.
All
And
right.
thanks, Stephanie and Ryan.
And catch his breath. Ryan's mostly here if you have fee questions, because I'm going to talk revenue and expense for Parks and Rec. So first is our Recreation Division. Goals and objectives on council's list for 2026 currently is to strengthen outreach to historically underserved communities to ensure that town park programming is inclusive and aligned with community interests. We've been making great strides towards this, but there's always room for continued improvement. And then also implement facility improvements to accommodate youth open gym programming during the summer months in Town Park Pavilion. Some of these are going to be capital related, which will go into more depth when you switch over to capital. For 2026, I just want to note that program fees are regularly reviewed and we ensure that it aligns with the department's pricing philosophy, which is next slide here, and that will continue to do so for 2026. As was noted earlier, we are proposing a 5% increase for pool use fees during the 2026 season. And on the expense side, we implemented some cost escalators for general inflation, but otherwise no major changes on the recreation side. Next one came. I scrolled and that didn't work. So this is our pricing philosophy that you've seen every year, but youth programs are subsidized and adult programs are break even. Nothing's changed on that front. And then we'll switch over to our Parks Maintenance Division, Facilities and Parks Maintenance Division. So do you want to read each of these or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. So for facilities and parks, it is to maintain and improve Telluride's parks, recreational facilities, and public spaces, ensuring that they are safe, sustainable, and inviting for residents and visitors, while supporting the town's goals for environmental stewardship and long-term asset management.
So this is implementing projects and also keeping up with general maintenance and facility management. So several goals and objectives associated with this one. The majority are capital related, which we'll talk about next. But the third one is to continue to support the ongoing multi-jurisdictional regional youth center to ensure that it remains a safe and welcoming space for middle and high school students. Notable for 2026 is that we continue to introduce revenue generating measures, including rental fee increases for the stage and catering facility, as well as increases for campground usage and pavilion bag storage. For 2026, we are implementing a 7% increase in campground fees. I think that was a typo on the introduction. And that has already been approved by the Parks and Rec Commission at their August meeting. And then on the expense side, once again, some inflationary increases where needed. But of note for a significant savings is the town's contribution to the youth hangout shed operations. This has gone down significantly due to additional funding that they received and also updated O&M expenses. And overall, we're seeing savings from the 2025 projected year end and just a minor increase for 2026. So if you have any questions about any of that, Ryan can probably address them.
What caused the savings? I mean, it's a great thing for 2025, but like what were there specific things or it's just like overall, everything was just.
Overall, I mean, I think that youth hangout savings was significant,
Okay.
which helped with compensate for a few overages, but in general, we tend to stick to our budgets and come in under where we can.
Oh, perfect. I just wasn't sure if there were things that weren't done and that was like what caused it, or if it just was that everything was done and we just were tight. That's great.
Yeah, and the updated O&M expenses for the youth hangout, is that just things are costing less than we budgeted for, or is there something that changed in the approach?
I think it was just, not a lot of certainty. A lot of the budgets came together very quickly and you definitely learn a lot once you start operating the facility. And then, yeah, they got some good grant money as well, so.
And just as a reminder, we do not set the operating budget. CTC provides us that and we pay a third of that budget. So we are just taking their budget divided by a third and putting it
Okay.
within ours. So
But I do
thank you for
believe-
being that voice, but
But I believe some of the estimates that Ryan put together on the front end for facility expenses also came in under as well. So conservative budget.
For the youth hangout, are we going to be on that third model moving forward? Wasn't there a request by one of the jurisdictions to have it be more aligned with usage?
we had a discussion at so we'll see how that goes, but the IGA does continue forward.
Yeah.
So I'll have to read the language in that IGA.
Okay, perfect.
And they're
think-
tracking the data on
Yeah.
usage.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
you're-
think it changes our number. When I last looked at the data, like we were at that third, but I just wanted to make sure that I understood that correctly.
It might change ours, because I think it was like 40%,
Yeah, I think it was
50%,
10%
or something like that.
Right.
So it could change ours.
Okay, cool.
So.
Thanks.
All right, and then just a reminder, we have pricing philosophies for facilities as well. So this is an example for the pavilion, which is similar for stage and catering.
Thank you.
Just have a moment.
No, keep going.
All right, next, please. And then we have our special events division. This division was formalized during last year's budget process as our third division in the department.
And so for this final mission, I got like so many going on. Sorry about that, everybody. It is to support vibrant, safe, community-focused events that enhance Telluride's cultural and social fabric while fostering economic growth and promoting the time's unique character. In alignment with the mission of the Commission of Community Assistance, Arts and Special Events, the division works to support and encourage an environment that nurtures nonprofit arts, special events, community support organizations, enhancing the well-being, welfare, and educational opportunities for all citizens, which we all know CASE is supported by the general fund. Thank you, Stephanie.
So a goal and objective specific to this division is to develop and implement timelines for drafting, review, and execution of special event contracts to improve efficiency and ensure timely completion. Notable items in the budget is we continue to generate additional revenues tied specifically to special events operating on town property. We estimated about a $27,000 addition for 2026 through the implementation of the admission fee increase. Once again, that was 21.4%. That was implemented for 2025, and that's on a 5-year cycle of being revisited, so it'll remain as is for a while here. Also increase of campground fees, and then we've rolled out phase 2 of our utility reimbursement process for multi-day events operating on town property through the addition of new facilities or existing facilities to that process. Also, as mentioned earlier, the stage and catering facility rental fees were increased. And then we are looking for 2026 to continue to enhance the revenues that we collect from special events. We've got a third phase of the utility reimbursement that we would like to roll out, in addition to exploring whether these can or should be assessed for Warner Field camping and or street closures. So that requires quite a bit of more discussion. But those are 2 items that we've identified as potentials. On the expense side, just some minor escalation values for inflation. However, a more notable change is doubling the New Year's Eve festivities budget for what staff's been requested to look at expanding and enhancing that town event. We don't have a plan, but we thought twice the budget would accommodate some noticeable improvements to that event. And then CASE. CASE took action at their last meeting to make a recommendation to council for an increase to both the arts and special events and community support budgets. There were no increases last year. It was advised that the general fund was pretty tight and that CASE should try and operate within their current parameters, which they did. But this year there is a request for 2% to the arts and special events grant category and 5% to the community support. And a letter is provided in your packet explaining this. We did just get grants. The deadline was midnight on Monday, so we now have some numbers, and I feel confident that these requests are warranted based on what we've received in terms of number of applicants and request amounts. We haven't shared that with Case yet, so it's not really ready to go to you guys. But we are seeing increases in terms of request amounts, and we know that nonprofits have increased cost of doing business and potential decreases in their federal and or grant funding, which we've heard from the applicants as well. So with that, we've got a few analysis slides.
Just on the last slide there, Stephanie, just 2 cents of add-in. I do support exploration of use fee for Warner Field camping. My understanding is the campground fees are sort of, you're having an impact on something, and then so it's a little bit of cost recovery esque. I feel like the impact of Warner Field, which is not specifically a campground site, and then sees many people camping on it for our some festival weekends, that impact is higher, and then obviously requires staff time and resources to then mitigate that impact for all the other uses on Warner Field. So that's something I don't think I even realized before this year that we weren't collecting. So I just wanted to add in 2 cents that I think we should explore that.
And we are collecting an admission fee, so we need to be careful that there's not overlap between those two. So that's something that we've been very cautious of as we implement new revenue generating opportunities for us, i.e. fees for events. And so we have to just be cautious on how we implement that and how we interpret it. Impact versus loss of revenue versus cost recovery. Those are the different approaches that we still need to explore.
I mean, I agree with you. I think also just looking at like there's different utilization, right? I mean, I think we have festivals that use campground or camping to help with staff housing scarcity, which I think is one thing. And then we also have festivals that use camping to generate revenue. And I think that the two, there maybe needs to be a little bit of a split in philosophy as to how you manage that. But I agree with looking at that.
Thank you.
Okay, so for special events, we came up with this pricing philosophy a year or two ago, just taking into consideration the events that are free and open to the public, that are providing a benefit to the community. And I know as a goal of council to have as many gatherings as possible for the community. So that being 100% subsidy, and then ticketed events having 2 different categories depending on what the organization is. So this is a philosophy that will roll into whatever new fees that we establish when it comes to facility use. And then on Case, here's a graph showing just how the Case budget has changed over the years. 2018 was an anomaly when Case absorbed all the previously funded town council items. And then you can see it stayed stagnant some years and then had some growth. The decrease we see for community support between 2024 and 2025 is due to Eco Action funding when that was pulled out of the Case budget and fully funded by council. And then next slide is just showing you how number of applications stay somewhat consistent, but we also see variables in terms of average request amount. And as I said, a quick analysis of what we received for 2026 is pretty much in line with the growth that we've been seeing and supported by the request. And then there was a letter. I know Catherine Warren, our chair, was wanting to be here, but she's got a work conflict. Elena, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, and I talked to Catherine. She kind of told me to take the lead if you guys have any questions. But the increase that was asked for is in part due to just rising costs across the board, like our arts nonprofits and our special events. It costs more for them to pay their staff to operate the way that they normally do. The increase in the higher increase in the community support category is based on the requests that we're getting. We're seeing an increase in requests in that category, not necessarily in number of applicants, but in well, actually, I guess the numbers.
No.
Within.
Yeah, am I misremembering?
For community support.
Yeah,
We have some new applicants asking for large amounts, which also has resulted, I mean, a lot of it comes down to the criteria and the decision-making and, but the quantity, and the dollar amount. So I can look up real quick. I think we're on the rise in terms of applicants for 2026.
Yeah, in general, that category is sort of what we've seen as an important, I mean, it's literally community support. So
So we have 30 applicants in 2026 for community support, and the average request amount is up for 2026 as well.
I'd be curious to see, and maybe this is just like through the application process, or maybe they could just weigh in, but I'm curious how much of this is actually being affected by cuts in federal funding. I do also think that that's an important thing for our community to know. I think we absolutely need to support all of the organizations that are asking for these funds. But I think that we need to, if this unfortunately is the way the country is going, that we maybe need to start looking to see how this community is going to support those organizations, because we are not getting outside support any further. So I think like understanding the nexus would be great. I think just in justifying those costs to everybody that are living here and paying them.
Well, and something else worth mentioning is like a lot of community support organizations didn't ask for an increase in their grant funding because we didn't have an increase in the budget. And then we're given grants that were less than their ask and less than the previous year. And just like anecdotally, that like was something that I got a lot of feedback about. Yeah. So I think, the ask amount, the average request amount that we're seeing here was maybe lower than it otherwise would have been, because a lot of the applicants knew that we didn't have an increase in our budget. And I think the need's there for the funding.
And the case application does ask for federal funding as information to be provided. And then we also added a new question. There were very few changes to the application, but we did add a new question asking them to describe what, if their request is significantly different, to describe why. So that would be a field that would show a lot of that federal funding, perhaps, if that is an issue.
Yeah, and I think, was it like 10% different? Like, wasn't there a percentage increase? Yeah, so it's like if your ask increase was over a certain percentage, you had to answer that question.
Cool. Thank you.
I think that's it.
And before we move on to Kyle with Public Works and his division, I do want to just jump back to legal quickly. The update that Kevin gave for staffing was not a budgetary impact for 2026 because it occurred Q3 of 2024, so fully budgeted in 2025. So there would be no meaningful change in that 2026 budget line item. Yeah, so that helps clarify that one.
Thank you.
So for streets and utilities, the mission for this division within Public Works is to enhance the quality of life in the community by maintaining and improving essential infrastructure systems. Through the application of technical expertise in engineering and environmental stewardship, this division ensures the safe and reliable and sustainable operations of streets, bridge, utility, stormwater systems. The division is committed to promoting public safety, protecting natural resources, and adhering to the highest standards of professionalism, ethical conduct, and regulatory compliance in all projects and services. And I'll pass it over to you, Kyle.
Awesome. Thank you. First, I hope everyone sees that beautiful baby on the TV.
I know, Geneva. Oh,
That
napping
flies.
baby.
That's crazy.
Aw.
So for 2026, the focuses, the first one and most important for me is going to be replacing the existing Mahoney double barrel 72-inch corrugated metal pipe culvert. We're about to approach the 90% design completion on that project. We're also, with the help of Darren, seeking out a grant opportunity for that, which I'll keep my fingers crossed, because of course that is a pretty good expense for the capital, and any grant opportunity would be very beneficial to help pay for that. So we are continuing to explore that opportunity, and we'll have a good advantage being almost shovel ready So looking forward to applying for that, which I believe is due early November. And then we'll continue with street maintenance and improvements in alignment with the pavement condition index. That's just our typical overlay mill patch project. And just a heads up on that, that 2025 project is going to be occurring here next week. So you'll see a lot of big equipment out there milling down the street and replacing it. The major one's going to be on Colorado between Pine and Alder. And then we're going to be hitting up a bunch of other streets around town. So just be aware of that. But for 2026, we'll continue that effort to hopefully increase that survey score for the streets within Telluride. Enhance maintenance of the town's stormwater system by assessing and replacing underperforming infrastructure. As stormwater is one of those that's beneath the road, so you really don't see it, and you don't really understand or realize the existing condition of that infrastructure, which we've done a CCTV similar to what we did with the sanitary sewer. And so we have a good understanding of what that existing infrastructure currently looks like. And we do have a significant amount of failing infrastructure. It's definitely still working, but it needs to be replaced in most cases for the inlets, and then a lot of pipe rehabilitation throughout town. We got a bunch of the old corrugated metal, similar to what you're seeing on the bridge, which is deteriorating, and the inverts tend to rot out. So we just got to go through and start replacing some of that stormwater infrastructure. We'll be finalizing the traffic calming analysis for the east end of town. So I've actually got KLJ on board to start that design efforts to look at how we can work on reducing some of those speeds out east. Right now, we've got the water Jersey barriers that we have to fill up. And of course, those are working temporarily, but that is not a permanent structure. And there is some movement within those water Jersey barriers that are concerning. So looking for a more permanent solution out there out east to slow down that traffic through those developments. We'll be exploring the development of annual concrete sidewalk and ramp replacement. Basically continuing our efforts like we saw on Colorado, but we've really not had a program to look at the concrete throughout town. Not only the curb and gutter, but as well as the sidewalk that is the responsibility of the private property. So just getting, really starting to look at the overall condition throughout the town where we can improve some of those sidewalks to relieve it from the trip hazards or anything else that exists, just from excessive cracking, spalling, getting those replaced in a timely manner. We'll begin the process to revise the public works standard and specifications along with the streetscape concepts to align with contemporary best practices, elevate the town's aesthetics, and strengthen infrastructure resilience. So those existing plans that are on PDF on the web, as well as hard copy, hoping to update those to meet current standards. They're just outdated. I think they were last revised in, I think it was either 2007 or 2011. So just bringing those up to current standards. Continue right away, complete streets improvements that align with the town council approved Southwest Area Conceptual Plan. There's a lot with that one. There's a lot of thoughts and theories and concepts that we want to discuss and run by everyone for the continuation of that plan along Mahoney Drive, West Colorado between the roundabout and Clark's, and then just a continuation of what we're currently doing with West Pacific right now. So just looking at that overall conceptual plan. A notable adjustments for 2026. The general ledger that we see increased in 2026 includes utilities and travel and training and professional services. We're actually fully staffed within this department, which is great. So some of those increases are going to be just from the clothing side. We have an annual clothing allowance and boot allowance. And historically that has been low just because of the vacancies. And so that'll be brought up to showing that we are fully staffed. The overall budget shows a decrease of 2% from the 2025 budget. Administrative and engineering division operational budget is projected in 2026 to increase by 37%. That's mainly with the professional services because of all the conceptual stuff we'll be working on in 2026. We're gonna have to look for those third-party engineers, architects to assist with a lot of these designs. We'll still do what we can internally, but to keep up with those designs, we'll definitely have to look outside from the engineering department.
So yeah, Kyle, thank you. My comment and questions on the spur bike path. You'll probably remember 2 years ago, there was a budget line item, I believe $1 million for it. I expressed at that time and still feel concerned that we just throw money at this, and it feels like the same issues sort of happen every year. As we all know, there's been a lot of work you've been doing, this particularly on that western part of the bike path where there is water backup. I think thanks to some beaver activity there now. The point being, I would encourage us to explore a more permanent solution. It feels like we're just continuing to spin our wheels on this and nothing actually happens. It does impact the user experience. It does, in my opinion, likely decrease the amount of use that we see. We do want to encourage people to get out of their cars and use that, especially for commuters. So has that been a thing you've looked at? What kind of bigger fix do we have so we're not just coming back again and again and again?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that so much. And so for the 2026, there's a capital that is budgeted specifically for the bike path. And so last year, this has been one of my biggest struggles to get, outside assistance to help with that bike path. And we just come to terms that there's no one out there that's willing to help us repair those cracks. And so our in-house guys are consistently going out there and just trying to replace. They're too wide for the crack seal. A lot of them, you'll see the black lines that go across. Anything of a small crack can be sealed with the crack seal. But anything wider than that, you can try to tackle on with a mastic. We've abandoned that theory just because that's not going to work. And so they're physically cutting out those cracks and repairing them. So you'll see more so on the west end, you'll see those are saw cut out now. I'm hoping to get majority of those replaced by end of year. Because what'll happen is if you overlay over those cracks, it'll just reflect back up and you'll see them just like they did. I want to say maybe 6 years ago it was overlaid, and then here we are with, you can't tell any difference. And so I've got really good experience with these significant cracks, more so in the metro area in the Green Mountain where they have that expansive soil. So the concept of being able to repair these is we'll go through, we'll remove and replace the sections that are cracked with the wide crack. And then my goal is to get, there's a company out of the metro area that I'll have to have them come in, and they put down it's a fabric, it's called fiber mesh. And you actually have to apply it for the whole length of that bike path. And it's a high tack that you put onto it, and you pave over that, and that prevents any reflective cracks coming up. So I have to make sure that's in place. That way we don't just see an overlay go in and then all those reflective cracks come up.
And reflective cracks, that would be inclusive of water freeze thaw cycles, what we're seeing on the west end with that water infiltration there. Yeah,
exactly. And that's where, concrete is a rigid material. And then you have asphalt that is more flexible. And as it becomes oxidized, starts to get rigid, and any movement, you'll see these cracks form. And so if we do that, if we put down the fabric and then the overlay, and then we're going to have a constant maintenance of crack sealing. That way water doesn't get in the cracks to allow for that expansion, contraction to open those up. We'll still have a battle, most likely where the beaver ponds are at, just because now the water is actually migrating from below, and there's no way to be able to stop that. So majority of the stretch, I'm confident that we'll be able to see, obviously a good product once we're finished, but that's going to be an ongoing maintenance on these beaver ponds.
Have you explored at all in a limited sense, like a raised sidewalk, something that was like metal? I think of what's outside of Moab near the Colorado River, something that wouldn't be as susceptible to water infiltration in that specific zone.
We haven't explored anything from elevating it up. Just because of the expense, like even concrete, we're going to talk almost probably 10 times what it would be to overlay. And so I think what we'll do is with this being I'm not gonna say a low expense, but a cheaper option. And then if I can't seem to manage it, I think we're gonna have to explore something else in the future if these cracks keep lining up over the Beaver Pond.
And on the topic of expense, since we're
We
discussing.
will talk about this more in the capital budget overall as well.
Sure,
Yep.
thanks. Last comment. On the topic of expenses, we're talking about it with the youth hangout with our regional partners, per usage thing, or per usage split of expense. This might be one area where we can raise that topic as well, because many of the users of the bike path are not town residents. We want them to use this as well, but I think this might be a good area to reach out to the county and see what kind of collaboration we could have with our county partners.
I think that's great. We will happily do that. I do know that they are, I think, going at our next IG meeting in November, which is after budget discussion. So I'll proactively do this as well. They do want to give an update to the governments on their budget constraints and some of their philosophies. So I think we'll hear more from them as a collective group as well on some of those pieces, but I will make sure to reach out on this topic to see if there's any movement on that.
Thank you.
Geneva?
Yeah, just really quick. I remember Kyle mentioning that it was tough to find a contractor to come in and do this like very obscure, challenging overlay. And I had discussed with David Averill this challenge. And he, forgive me, Kyle, if you already talked to him about this, but he said he's got some big paving projects next year too, and maybe could team up with the town to get like a bigger bid going to be a little more enticing. I don't know if that's a conversation you've had or if that changes with the fabric overlay thing you're talking about, but just wanted to throw that out there and I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks.
No, that's great. And I'll clarify on that a little bit. So where we're having a hard time getting someone in is just the patchwork. I'm pretty confident we can find multiple contractors come in and actually do the overlay. They're just unwilling to do the actual the patchwork just because it is time consuming and it's such a little volume that you're going to be charging $10,000 per crack removal, which is just insane. So that's the hardship. But yeah, I think whatever we can do to bring more people in, more options. We're always looking at new opportunities just to be competitive and get the cost down. So happy to reach out to whoever just to coordinate some more bids. So thank you.
Great.
Okay.
I will ask this of you, Mian. We're going to be talking about the capital fund, but before Kyle leaves, because his other divisions will be on the October 9th, I do know we have public comment specifically for the bike path, which we can do now since we've had the discussion, or later when it is shown within our capital budget.
Let's do it now, or is it in person? Okay. Perfect.
If anyone has public comments.
Yes, please. And you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, I won't take that long. Hi, I'm Bob Mather, resident of Telluride for 15 years, former town historic architect, and currently on HARC, but I'm not here about that. I'm here about the bike path. Last time I rode it was last spring. It was so rough, horrible ride. I know some people have fallen, been hurt because of the patching, the way it's been done. I applaud you. I've driven by and seen some of the work they've been doing down by the Beaver Pond. I think it looks much better. I come from a family that's been in road construction since 1913, since my grandfather started the company. My little brother's still involved. And so I can see that things are being done better than they have been in the past. And I really hope you keep this in the budget. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks. Kyle. All right, go ahead.
Capital fund.
Yeah, perfect. So don't go too far.
The capital fund accounts for general government capital projects and funds a majority of the transportation fund and the street, bridge and alley fund. It's mainly funded by that 3% real estate transfer tax. And of that revenue, 80% of that is retained in the capital fund, 20% is transferred, 15% to the reserve capital improvement fund, and 5% to the open space fund. And almost half of that budget, some years goes to transfers to other funds. We have some grants for 2026, a CASTA grant, which covers 80% of the cost of an electric bus. And then CDOT grants, which covers a majority of the cost of the public works facility remodel. And we did make some changes since this was in your packet and phased the oval projects over 2026 and 2027.
Yeah, I can jump into that and maybe ask Stephanie as well. So after further conversations, and just looking at staff capacity and the realities of the construction season and cycle, it did make more sense. Oh, and Ryan, actually, you should be the one that talks about this, to split the oval or phase the oval from 2026 and 2027. So those adjustments have been made. It is the manager's office recommendation, though, to not fill that, I'll put quote unquote, savings in 2026 with anything else, just to account for the costs that we still need to maintain in 2027 for the remainder of that project. Also, we are looking at a grant for the Mahoney Bridge, which would require a match. Right now, we have the Mahoney Bridge budgeted for 2027, but if we get a grant, I would like to have some flexibility within a match potential to get started earlier if that grant is rewarded. So that is the shift that we have made since our last conversations. Have any questions on that? Okay, thumbs up. Great.
So with that shift, we have a beginning fund balance of 4.1 million, revenues of 8.9 million, total expenses of 10.7, a net loss of 1.6 million, leaving us an ending fund balance of 2.5 million, or 42% reserve. And again, our goal in this fund is to have a 25% fund balance reserve. And we already talked about our real estate transfer tax revenues for 26, and just again showing how we've been budgeting low on that revenue source the past several years. And this just shows the capital fund structure and that 20% of real estate transfer tax off the top being transferred out. 3% of expenses go to the general fund as an administrative fee, and it funds a majority of the street, bridge, and alley fund and transportation fund. And then what's left is for capital projects. And we are beginning 2025 with a fund balance of $1.42 million higher than we projected during the budget process. And our mid-year 2025 budget amendments had several carry forward unspent balances from 2024. And I'll let Stephanie and Ryan come up and speak about their 2026 budget request for the Parks and Recreation Department.
I'll do a quick introduction and then Ryan's prepared to speak to the Warnerfield Oval project, both in terms of the schedule change with phasing, and also have the Parks and Rec Commission Chair JJ who would like to speak to that project as well. So the request for 2026 entails core area improvements, more to come on that one on the next slide. Parks projects is 30,000. That's our annual request item for the Parks and Rec Commission and staff to prioritize small projects. We usually get 2 to 3 projects done with that money. The swimming pool resurfacing and tile work, mostly in the lap pool, but a little bit of work in the rec pool that was deferred from this year because it staff resources and also available contractors, but we need to get it done in 2026 and it's a high priority. The River Park Corridor Management Plan is a new one. It is in the goals and objectives as well. And this is also deferred money from the current year. And I can talk about that one a little more at the end. And then park improvements, specifically surveying. So we'll dive into some of these newer ones after we talk about the Oval. Next.
So the Oval was identified in a preliminary plan was developed during the 2020 Top Parks Master Plan. It was also identified as a priority project. The oval construction will give us a surface and significant perimeter improvements for multi-use events, sports courts, and a winter ice rink. The full design for the project was started in 2021, and we just finished an update in 2025. And that was back just in August, and that included pricing, scheduling, and that's where a lot of our recent changes to the projected schedule come from. The project is a partial carryover from 25 in regards to scope and budget allocation. As I mentioned, we just did a professional cost estimate in August, which is resulting in a 526K increase the placeholder. And the total project cost will be 1.265. Warner Field safety netting is a carryover from 24 and 25. This is a project we have been wanting to get done for a while, as many of you know. The core area and its surrounding areas are unavailable during a lot of adult softball times. And it's definitely a priority of ours to make that available. We just completed full design work in August as well, and that included the scheduling and component part and the cost projections, which included a $40,000 increase to the total project cost. Yeah. Slide, please. So based on our recent cost projections and project duration and scheduling, we're proposing 2 phases, very similar to how we did the skate park a few years ago, which was a successful scheduling project. So in the fall of 26, we're proposing to do the Warner Field safety netting, all the storm drainage around the site, and as much site work as the weather allows. So how deep into the winter we can go will just be weather dependent. We're projecting the 2026 cost at $800,000, and then phase 2, which will start in the spring, right around April 1, will be any remaining site work, all the concrete work, so the sports courts, the perimeter draining, retaining walls, stairs, all that sort of stuff. And then the equipment installation, sod and landscaping, all the re-veg that will take place. That is budgeted at the remaining 1.213 with a 10% escalator for the 2027 amount.
So our budget estimates were based on 2026 values.
Yep.
So we're wanting to escalate that to be conservative.
And on this slide here, just have a picture to kind of help show you the areas. So the focus for 2026 would be the Warner Field outfield fence. So the numbers in 9 there. And then as much of the site work, the underground work for areas 2, 3, 5, 4, and 6.
And the space between Warner Field fence and
Yes.
like that pathway area too.
Yep. And the sod and everything the whole rest of the whole. Slide, please. The oval improvements will greatly benefit the entire community. As a lot of you guys know, this area has a lot of existing uses and some exciting new uses. So the existing uses are a lot of special events, private events, and community gatherings, which include birthday parties, graduations, memorials, all kinds of things. Lots of informal uses and ice rink in the wintertime. New uses that are proposed or anticipated would be 2 basketball courts. The current ones are definitely getting quite old and don't meet the current demand.
Current one.
The current one, yeah, it's also very small. So these would be more regulation style basketball courts. Pickleball could also move over there during some of the peak high demands in the morning hours. We've also had requests from our community to put in a wall ball in the park, which is something soccer players could kick against or different things. A lot of times they will go into the tennis courts, which is already, again, another popular area because there is a wall in there, but they kind of need their own space. So that southern retaining wall will include a wall ball. And then Parks and Rec staff and the commission will ensure equitable facility use by coming up with a management plan to balance all those uses. The proposed concrete surface on the oval will improve conditions both in the summer and the winter. Summer will greatly improve drainage, create lots of different tie downs for different types of event setups. If you know, even with the nice new warming hut area and some minor regrading that we did, it's still a bit wet over there many times. So really, all the water in the park drains to that area, and we really want to finish making those improvements. Also in the winter, making an ice rink on top of grass is challenging, and having a nice hard surface will allow us to be more efficient with staff time, but also our water usage. And then the Warner Field safety netting will greatly benefit our ability to open up the core area on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday evenings, and Saturday mornings and afternoons during softball season, which is mid-May through late July. So you guys can see how much time we just cannot make reservations over there. So we can really greatly open that area up to more uses. We do allow informal use during those times, but we don't take reservations due to those safety concerns. And we'll also put in a new gate at the center field of Warner Field, which will allow better flow for large events exiting Town Park, but also just general park egress. And
we'll pause there before we talk about the other projects to see if there's any questions. And then once again, JJ would love to address these projects as well.
I know everyone thinks I'm going to say something. I'm not going to. I mean, I've heard loud and clear that the council doesn't necessarily agree, and I do hope that in the future we do look for more community spaces to be managed so that with coverage, with like ceiling coverage in case of inclement weather, so that our community can gather in places free that are nice looking, not just cafeterias as was suggested in the last meeting. But this looks great. I'm sure that the community is going to be thrilled. And I hope that maybe our regional partners can start to support the funding for all of this, since they've taken away their public tennis courts and their public ball courts from being utilized. So I think that maybe that's one of the places we need to start having conversations, because I don't think the town should be paying for all of this for the region as a whole. Thanks, guys.
Right.
Can
Well,
is it okay, JJ?
Yeah, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Listen, I just wanted to add, in 30 years here, I think these are some of the improvements
Microphone.
that we've direly needed.
JJ, will you stand back either at that microphone or?
Sorry.
Gotta put a face in a microphone.
Light covering. No, it's just, these have been, you look at the warming hut, great improvement, right? Ryan did an amazing job, but you look at the basketball court, the safety netting, it's something that's direly needed. It helps it's big for the kids. It's self-managed play, take a basketball down there, have fun. Huge for our Hispanic community, like how much when you notice how much our Hispanic community is using those basketball courts throughout the summer, it's incredible, for other community adults playing basketball and pickleball, just having more recreation space, improvements to existing facilities, and hugely for our staff. They've been battling with that ice surface for as long as I've been on the board, in the last 8-10 years. So, and it's a year-round amenity, which is huge. So thank you for your support for it. I think it's not going to prohibit existing uses. And I think, it's just a great improvement. So thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the other projects then. So I already talked about the small project, or that parks projects item where we would pick priority small projects. Also the swimming pool, this is much needed maintenance that hasn't happened since initial construction in 2014 of the lap pool. And then some final work on the rec pool. We did do the same resurfacing on the rec pool a few years ago, and we're very pleased with the product. But doing some tile work in that facility as well. We have a short window of when we can do this work, obviously, with what's already a short pool season and a highly demand facility. And then As I said, that got deferred from this year, so we did bump that cost up slightly by 10%, knowing that costs are continuing to grow up. The River Park Corridor Management Plan is one that I'm excited about, and it's very necessary. And this is a plan to guide the sustainable operation, maintenance, and management of the river park, which does fall under Parks and Recreation. This would be the corridor and the river itself and trail. And we would be looking at ecological health, public safety, and recreational access. And this is something that we'd work with a consultant and a team of others, and it would also be Parks and Rec Commission would play a large role in having a public component of this process as well. So more to come on that, but has not been an area that has had an active management plan or even totally known existing conditions. So much needed from my perspective. And then the park improvements, Ryan, you want to speak to the survey work?
Yeah, this will just allow us to get some survey work done for areas of town park that don't have survey work completed, which is our first step in design. And just to allow us to better design and execute a project within 1 year. The survey work really needs to happen in the summer months. And so if you're trying to do a project January to December, it would just allow us to start, right on the ground with design work in January, having all that survey work done ahead of time. So kind of just narrowly looking at the projects that we're going to do in the next, 1, 2, 3 years. So just getting that survey work done ahead of time.
And this would be a starting point for a lot of our master plan improvements. I will say we've accomplished a lot of phase 1 improvements just since 2020, but we want to start working on other areas like the entryways, the playground, all the things that are called out in our master plan, but we need to have the existing conditions documented before we can start designing that. That's it for Parks and Rec.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Public Works.
Kyle and Public Works.
Oh, no, okay, I'll go over this one real quick. So a couple of these requests for 2026, the fleet replacement. I'm sure everyone's aware that originally there was a cost associated with the fleet replacement. Prior to me starting here, there was kind of a standard set for the expectation for the fleet. And I know that there was a mechanic that we reduced down to 2 mechanics from the 3 based on the criteria and our expectations for vehicles. And so for the past 2 years, we've tried to get back on track. So we've increased the fleet replacement program to get the vehicles to a newer state. We just got rid of our 1998 dump truck. So we had some vehicles that were pretty old and high maintenance and high cost. And so I would say after 2026, I think we'll be on par to where we need to be, to where our mechanics can keep up with the fleet replacement, and we'll be within at least 10 years of the oldest vehicle within our fleet. The 750 for 2026, that's going to get also our fleet back into more of a standard of specific vehicles. Historically, we've had what seems like whatever we could find at a good price. And so this will get rid of the old Buicks that we have floating around town. This will allow our fleet mechanics to have consistent parts within their shop and really get us back on track. We've had a lot of success with some grant opportunities moving towards the EV. So we'll get another bus, which I'll mention here in a second. That'll be all electric. And then of course we've got our grant that's in this year through CDOT for the all electric street sweeper. So that'll be coming hopefully November, December. And then for 2026, that'll just really get us back on par to where then I think 2027, that'll be reduced back to hopefully closer to the 500,000 for an annual replacement program. The Casta bus replacement, that's the grant where it's 80% funded. We've got that piece of equipment in order, and so we should be getting that new EV bus similar to one that we already have. in our fleet towards mid to the end of 2026. And then the Public Works Facility Improvement, that was the grant we got for 2.4 million. So it was 1.9, and then we received another 300,000. And then we have a carry forward from another grant we received for the transit expansion. And that one was frozen for the last, I want to say 3 months, and it finally got released. We're just waiting for the award. And then we'll move forward with that addition to our existing facility at the campus. So super excited for that one. Gonna be just a big project for the group because it is federally funded, but to have that project covered is going to be a huge benefit to that for the transit side, to also help expand for some future equipment storage, hopefully in 2027.
Really quick, and Zoe, for this, the tracking software for our facilities that we discussed in the general fund, would that also be able to help with fleet replacement sort of tracking or fleet tracking?
So Asset Essentials, it has like several modules for different departments, and so you're absolutely right. That is one of the benefits where it's really tracking every asset. And when you look at Asset Essentials, there's a lot to it for data collection beyond what you can even imagine. So you got to imagine, just think of everything in your household that you find as an asset. You have to have instruction manuals, you have to have PMs, you have all this information about that particular asset. And so it'll take a while for that data collection, but that is a module that is connected to the Asset Essentials for fleet. There are some components that don't track well with it, but we'll adapt and have to figure that part out. Yep. And that goes into like the automation through, they have equipment now to where you pull up to the gas pump and it recognizes the vehicle, where it automatic does the diagnostic test to see if there's any history issues, to pulling in the mileage for it to track for oil changes. So we're looking into all that kind of AI technology just to help track our inventory.
Great, thank you.
We could skip ahead to the Public Works request in the Street Bridge and Alley Fund while Kyle's up here.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Oh.
So this is for the streets, alley, and bridge. The one that I'll mention right off the top there for the 2026 request is the bike path repair and overlay for the $800,000. I want to say it was 2025 when we received a bid. It was just under that. I'm hoping that we could be still competitive with that price, and then there will be some additional cost for that Petromat that I'm hoping to put down as well. But I think within that budget, we should be pretty close to being able to get that overlay complete from roundabout to roundabout. So that's in there, and hopefully we can make that happen. Accessibility ramps like on Colorado. This is just the design work. So the plan is to design the ramps to complete from Aspen to Davis, heading west from where we completed the east side of Aspen this year. And so this is just to continue those efforts to keep heading west. And again, this is just for the design work with the possibility of seeing that construction in 2027. I know we all want to break from some of that, so I'll just work on design and then we'll tackle that on another year. Snow removal contract is for 200,000. That's going to be for the parking lot snow removal, as well as the contract for the sidewalks that are in front of town-owned property. And that's typical about what we see each year. Obviously, 3 years ago, we had a pretty significant snow year where it exceeded that, but historically it falls below that amount. So I'm comfortable with that for 2026. The miscellaneous projects and improvements, 400,000. That really falls under the streets collection and distribution type of work. That's just any miscellaneous project it'd be both planned and unplanned. We've had a lot this year that came up that was not planned, like the sewer replacement in the alley from the backup on Townsend that just occurred. That was just over 75,000 for that repair. We had the sewer line break on Mahoney And Prospector, that was another $75,000 for that repair. So that's really just to cover those miscellaneous things that come up within this department. And the stormwater management upgrades, that's for what I was talking about earlier, $250,000. That's just to start maintaining and replacing some of those assets for stormwater. We've got a couple of the sediment inlets that need to be replaced. We have failing, the roof structures on them are failing. And then that also includes some of the stormwater facilities that we need to either line or do a complete removal and replacement for. Definitely doesn't even come close to what would be, what we would need to fully replace all that inventory. But this is a good start to get us back on track. Streets O&M, that's $400,000 for 2026. That again is going to cover more of the sign replacement, potholes, the materials, tools for even trash removal for along Main for our folks that do the recycle and trash. And then really falls within also the miscellaneous items. So anything that's contracted out, do a lot of work with TGI as well as Southwest for pumping out our inlets, our fog throughout the sewer system along what we call Restaurant Row. So that's where a lot of that work is covered under. And then the asphalt mill and overlays, $900,000 for 2026. And after that, I think we'll be able to reduce that request down. That will wrap up all the streets that I have listed as in poor condition. So we'll get a good chunk of that this year, and that would be just the remaining streets that are rated in poor. And then our status should go up to what we call fair or good. And to prove that, we'll run another PCI in after 2026, which what that does is it goes through, it's a machine that grades all the streets and does an assessment. So that way we can get a good understanding where our street conditions are at. And then if we feel that we want to improve even beyond that, we can have that discussion. But I do feel we'll be caught up after 2026. Alley improvements. This is Colorado, Columbia, Willow to Alder. There is an existing dirt alley that they see a lot of flooding, specifically at Alder. That's really where all the stormwater from the north side of town all combines, and then it heads under Colorado to that sediment pond across from Alder that we dredged out this year. And so that we've got the design complete for that. That'll be just for the construction to get new valley pans down the alley, as well as to get it paved. And that way we can direct all those stormwater flows to Alder to get it down and across Colorado, instead of sitting around at the intersection and causing some issues for those folks that have a parking garage underneath the building there. So that'll provide some relief for that alley. And then the concrete replacement, that's really just to initiate and start a program to where we start replacing a lot of that curb and gutter that you see that's missing. Chunks are taken out, deteriorated. We'll start working on a small program next year just to see how that goes. And hopefully we can line up some good contractors to really establish that program for the future. East Colorado traffic calming, the 215,000. That's what we were talking about earlier for the east end around Gold Run, to work on that traffic calming to eliminate the temporary water jersey barriers and come up with a permanent solution. And then 119,000 for VP2 road. That's where Black Bear ends, and then it ties into the Public Works facility. That'll be the public improvements along that stretch to complete that project and tie it into the Public Works campus. Questions?
I think actually just in regards to the traffic calming, I definitely meant this part of town as well, but I know that there has also been some concern on the west end as far as traffic. So I don't know if there's anything kind of that you're focusing on in 2026 for that.
Yeah, so for the west end, I'm tying that into those efforts with the Southwest area plan.
Okay.
That's where we're gonna look at Colorado between Roundabout to Clark's, looking at that congestion. I have a lot of, I guess I'll call it things I want to work on that I've established in my head, specifically even with like school traffic, trying to figure out solutions for, the morning traffic, the evening. We got a bunch of things that we're gonna look at. I've got a third-party consultant right now that'll, we're gonna look at some options for, traffic congestion within that area, that once I have some confidence that my theories will work, then I'll bring that obviously to the group and we'll just start that discussion and try to see what we can figure out to work on improving the west end.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, the Street Bridge and Alley Fund is, you're good, Kyle. Thank you. Funded by small revenues from highway user tax, county road and bridge tax, and then the remainder is a transfer from the capital improvement fund to make this ending fund balance 0. We'll go back to the other request for the capital fund now.
Great. And I don't think Lindsay's on, so unless she is. But I'll speak to wayfinding, and I mean, Sabine and Ashley were part of this conversation as well. Wayfinding is going to be a multi-year phased project. The overall project, I think, is near $2 million. So we're looking to phase it over the course of the next 4 additional years, beginning this year. So and we'll see in the manager's report, but we are starting fabrication for some of our parking signage, and parks are the 2 first phase.
And Zoe,
Good, you
I
are
am,
really great.
hi, I am on. So just to continue where you left off, we're going to bid within the next week with our design package. Guide Studio has put that together for us. They have been guiding this entire process. We'll go into fabrication this winter and have our first round of phase 1 priority signage install taking place next spring. This is going to include all of our parking signage for the entire metered zone district, along with some of the streets that go throughout that without being metered. So it's going to focus on vehicular and pedestrian wayfinding and assist in getting people to our parking structure, our car henge free day surface lot, and then ensure that folks have really clear direction on where they're allowed to park, when they're allowed to park there, when snow removal days are. So we have dynamic signage that'll be able to switch between seasons and switch on days when we have snow removal. Additionally, we have park pedestrian and vehicular wayfinding that has been part of the parks master plan already for a year. So Stephanie was kind enough to delay some of her installation to ensure it aligned with all of our wayfinding, placemaking, and signage design work. But that is also included in our priority 1 phasing. And we will have, just kind of depending on budget for this first year, we may have a second round of fabrication and implementation next fall. But we will go into phase 2 priority signage design work in the spring of next year, and we will just continue on a consistent cadence annually to go into design in spring with installation either in the fall or the following spring. So annually, you'll start seeing a lot of this signage coming to fruition and making things a lot more clear for folks throughout town.
Thank you, Lindsay. So some of that is accounted for in 2025 and obviously continue to roll 2026 and beyond. Facilities master plan. I do know James is on if there's any questions for that, but this is wrapping up our facilities master plan and the direction provided by council, which then will get us into the next steps of understanding financing approaches and other aspects to make these into fruition. If anyone has any questions, I'll let James jump on, or do you have anything to add, James?
No, that's it. This is the number that it will take to get us the town council direction given at the July 22nd meeting to get the buildings to design development drawing status, entitled, and to that GMP guaranteed maximum pricing for all of the facilities buildings. At which point we would be able to decide how to finance construction while also giving us better opportunities in the granting processes that we're looking into.
Great. Any questions there? If not, the next is the gondola project development. So this is the continuation on through our intergovernmental agreements and our portion of the continuing design and development of Project A for the gondola replacement with our partners, the Mountain Village entity and the SMART. And I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
And this has actually been moved to the Reserve Capital Improvement Fund for
Right.
2025 moving forward.
Yep. Thank you. And we'll make that clear. And then the
P2
VP2.
we already talked about.
Great. Okay, great.
So if there aren't any questions on that, we'll move on to the Reserve Capital Improvement Fund. The Reserve Capital Improvement Fund is used for various capital improvements, including but not limited to improving transportation services, improving the town's wastewater treatment facility, acquisition of property for and/or the construction of employee or affordable housing, and it's funded by 15% of sales and use tax, property tax, motor vehicle tax, business and building licenses, and real estate transfer tax. And that gondola project development expense has been moved here for 2025. We have projected revenues of 2.9 million in 2026 and a 2026 ending fund balance of $6.2 million. And we've already looked at the funding of these enough. Okay, that's it for that fund. And then we just have any fee changes that were requested for 2026. We have a 5% annual increase in water and wastewater tap fees. Dumping, septic, and raw sewage, 5.7% increase. Porta Potty Hall Company, 6.9% increase. And then I didn't add to this slide, but that increase in the daycare daily fee. So only a few requests for fee increases for 2026 from departments. And that's it.
You guys did it. Any more questions? All right.
Okay. We are going to move on to administrative reports, item 3A.
Sorry,
Do we have-
2B.
Yeah, there we go. Sorry, I caught myself. I'm going to call for public comment on our work sessions. If you are in the room, please step up to the microphone. And if you are on Zoom, please raise your hand.
Seeing none online.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to close public comment and move on to administrative reports. Item 3A, 2025 Blues and Brews debrief
We
summary.
do still have another work session quickly to be.
Oh, we do. Sorry. Work session 2B, discussion regarding resolutions in support of or against town ballot measures.
Okay, I don't know if you want me to lead this or you to lead this, Kevin, but we just wanted to get firm direction from council to bring forth resolutions for the town's ballot measures and get the direction on how you would like to direct staff to put those together, which you would like us to address, so on and so forth. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I don't think we have any direction, so we just need direction. If this was something that council wanted to see, I know ballots will be going out in mid-October. There was a request to put this on for discussion today. It sounds like you would possibly want to see this come back even as early as your meeting on September 30th. If it doesn't make the September 30th deadline or meeting, then you're looking at the October 21st meeting. So some direction on this and specific direction indeed on each of the 4 ballot questions, if that's what you're looking to have advanced. And just a quick update, I think you know this, but the Fair Campaign Practice Act does allow resolutions either in support or opposition to ballot measures that appear on your ballot. So that's what you're looking for. It can include elements of advocacy or elements that would be considered contrary to or against a ballot issue. So be mindful of that and be mindful of the clear direction of what position you'd be looking to take. We don't have a full council here. We have 5 of 7, I believe.
We have 4 of 7 at
4
this
of 7.
point. And maybe just for anybody that is listening or for anyone who's not been through a few elections, maybe just an explanation as to what what a resolution from the town council could look like, what it is, just so that everybody is operating from the same place of knowledge. Is that, do we feel like we need that? Does anyone care? I mean, do we, I mean, do you feel good that?
No, I think that would be helpful. Just, the last election was when I got elected, so this
Mhm.
is my first go around about, being a council person making resolutions, so.
Yeah, I think just some good education, just so that we're all on the same page and we all know what we're agreeing to or signing to. Some guidance from staff would be great.
And of course, this is just a work session, so this
Yeah.
would still have to come to a reading, but it's fine by me.
I think we need a little bit further direction. I'll let you lead this one, Kevin. So again, I think we need direction on. Okay, we understand you do want staff to consider resolutions.
I think let's start with the basics. What is a resolution? Like what are we what is the town what is this council going to be asking staff to draft? Like, let's start like there just to make sure we're like level setting what it is. And then we can discuss each ballot initiative and what we would like that resolution to say. Does that make sense?
Okay, so a resolution is a formal action taken by the town council. It's not at the level of an ordinance, which is typically something affecting property rights or imposing penalties or fines. So a resolution is one step down from an ordinance. It's a formal position of the town. I'll read you the provision of the Fair Campaign Practice Act that does permit what we're talking about. It permits the passing of a resolution or taking a position of advocacy on any issue described in subparagraph 1, though that's describing the election issues of this subparagraph 1A, also of the Fair Campaign Practice Act. So it does permit council. We've done this occasionally in the past. Trying to remember the last one that we've done. It's been a little bit of time since a formal election issue when we had a resolution taking a position of advocacy or opposition to a ballot question. You have 4. 2A is the lift ticket tax. 2B is the affordable housing debt question. 2C is the home rule charter change on council standards for attendance. And question 300 is the Telluride home rule charter amendment proposed by the citizens. Obviously, 3 of those 4 were advanced by town council directly. 2A, 2B, 2C. 300 was advanced by citizen process.
So essentially, the resolution would be a statement of the beliefs of the council to the public. Do you have any questions about that? Okay.
No, that makes sense.
Awesome. So then let's just kind of go through and we can ask any questions to staff or but we'll just call it out like ballot initiative by ballot initiative. The first is ballot issue 2A, which is the 5% ski lift ticket excise tax. Is this something that we would like to put a resolution of support for?
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
Thumbs up.
Perfect. Okay, so that's consensus of council. In regards to ballot initiative 2B, which is the authorization to increase debt for affordable housing. Does anyone have any questions or comments or? Nope. Okay.
I'll just add in because I did vote against this in our council meeting. In that long council meeting, I just conflated 2 unrelated issues. I just want to clear publicly for the record. I do support this. It really is just cost of living increase is not exactly the right verbiage, but that's a good way to sort of compare it in my mind of the last time we increased our bonding capacity was in 2019. So correct me if I'm wrong. It's been around that time, around 6 years. And obviously both revenues and expenditures have just greatly increased in that time. So by not doing what we do in our own budgeting of keeping close track of both revenues and expenditures and making sure that we're keeping those in alignment. If we weren't to do that with something like this, we'd be just hamstringing our future abilities as a town to develop affordable housing, which is obviously still one of the greatest community needs. So I do very much support this ballot measure.
Yeah, and I think like that's, that's the layman's sort of description of what this is. Like, we're just trying to use funds that have already been approved by the voters to use in this capacity, and we're just trying to use them more efficiently. So it really is like good government, like cleanup more so than anything else. So I'm in favor of doing it. Elena, Geneva, Dan, perfect. We're gonna have a resolution of support for 2B. Going to ballot initiative issue 2C, which is the attendance policy. Do we have any questions or comments on that?
Nope. And if memory serves, we all voted unanimously in support of referring that ballot measure to the electorate. So I believe that would likely still stand in a measure of support.
Okay, so we will have a resolution of support for 2C. And then the last question is the citizen initiated ballot question 300. Geneva, your thumbs down, you would like it to be a no? A resolution for no, or?
I mean, I don't support that. I mean, I think we'll all get a chance to sort of mention our reasoning when we vote on these resolutions as well. But just to keep it brief, I believe that just sort of if major projects are always getting referred to the ballot, that it becomes a campaign issue and who can spend more money, and there's a lot of misinformation. And I believe that our version of local democracy does work in utilizing folks who are really engaged, like town council, and experts and people who come to meetings to give feedback is a good functioning system, and would rather not have a big heightened local political fraught election every time we need to do an infrastructure project for the community. So I'm against that, while also hearing the feedback from the public that they want to feel more involved in decision making. So that's my piece, and I'll leave it at that for now.
Would you be in support of a resolution against 300?
I think that
Saying
makes
that
sense, just to treat it the same as every other ballot measure.
Okay.
But if others would prefer to just leave it off, I'm open to that too.
No, my preference would be to issue a statement of opposition against this ballot question. I agree with everything Geneva said. I'll add in a couple comments as well. I think this one is important to take time on, because I do feel like this is the hot topic of this election. The way I've been phrasing it is I think it's the wrong answer to a fair question. I certainly understand where some of the sentiment comes from, and Geneva touched on a lot of it there, of wanting more public input, or the desire to see, for some of the constituency, to feel like they have a more direct say in the levers of government. The way I look at it is I don't think that process would result in a better final product. I consider myself a student of Ezra Klein. He's sort of the modern political thinker that I think influences me as an elected official the most. And his most recent novel, Abundance, talks a lot about this exact type of scenario, where getting a more sort of process-filled direct democracy process it ends up with more bureaucracy, more stakeholders, that ends up diluting the final product, meaning it both takes longer and is ultimately oftentimes more expensive, because you have to satisfy more individual interest groups instead of just having a more targeted approach, which, especially when it comes to affordable housing, that's the singular focus. And if you have to sort of have all these add-ons and additions, which I think would be a result of this ballot measure, because you have to then, as Geneva was alluding to, win over these stakeholders to get final approval. that means, in my opinion, for a less efficient and less effective final product. I'll finish by saying I also think it's detrimental because we as the town would have to have a full design concept before going to the voters, not knowing whether or not it would be approved. And I believe that would also add to the expense of these projects, as well as be cumbersome and add time to these as well. So those are some of the reasons why I don't think the voters should approve this ballot measure. Thanks for letting me take that time.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said. And I'll add that we are chosen to sit in these seats and attend these meetings and absorb all the information and really, study the data and listen to consultants and experts and staff. And all of that work leads to us being the most informed people in the community to make these decisions. And I fear that if these big infrastructure decisions are going to the public, the people who are voting on that ultimately don't have as much information as we're required to have by being elected officials. And so, I would hate for decisions to be made based on incorrect information or just the lack of both like breadth and depth of information that we get as council people. So, in addition to everything that Dan and Geneva have said, I think that there's a reason why the 7 of us are chosen to be the representatives and do the work that makes it so that we can make really informed decisions and sort of see the big picture of what we're trying to do and not sort of separate these projects out piece by piece and neglect how they all fit together in our goals. So I also would be in support of a resolution opposing 300.
Awesome. I'll just take a moment to say something because I feel like it would be remiss not to. Dan, I actually really loved whatever the phrasing was that you used. This is the wrong answer to a valid concern. I think we understand the frustration where this was born from, but this is the absolute wrong way to go about affecting positive change in this community. We do have the safeguards in place in our current structure and I think that is something that's either being deliberately ignored or not utilized to its fullest extent. Like we do have the right, the public does have the right to call for a referendum on our decisions if they do feel as though they're incorrect. They do have the right to ask our town meeting moderator to call a town hall at which there is an immediate vote on anything that they choose to do, choose to have as a topic at that town hall. And I think it is really important that we have the public process that we do because it allows for us to take the time to ensure that we have the experts speaking to the subject matter, that we have the community input that affects and determines some of our decision-making structure. And by shortcutting it to a vote, I think that we would be doing a grave, grave, grave disservice to what I think is already under attack across the country, which is our Republican form of government. And I know that this is a town of people that care greatly, and this is a community that wants to be involved. And we need to, as council, ensure that they feel that they can be a part of the public process, but the public process that we have works and can work. And I hope that anybody that either put this initiative forward or is supporting it will instead come and be a part of the public process so that process can represent your voice as opposed to not being a part of it and then being saddened by the fact that we didn't hear you. So I think, as with everyone else, I would also like there to be a resolution of support. A resolution that states that we do not support Charter Amendment 300, correct? Zoe, Kevin, do you feel like you need any other direction? Is there anything else that we need to give you for that?
I think we're okay. I'll work with Zoe and we'll see who takes the lead on. We'll have to draft 4 resolutions between now and your meeting on Tuesday. You want this coming back on Tuesday?
Yes.
Sorry, but yes.
There is some urgency to this. A lot of people have already been talking about the election and we haven't had a lot of
There's been
full information.
there's been some feedback about why we have not weighed in on this. So I think it's important that we get an answer as quickly as possible to the
Yeah.
public.
And I'll, happily rely on our legal team to draft resolutions, but help however we need.
Amazing. Okay, if there's no further discussion, there's no public discussion, is anybody raising their hand? Okay. Then we are going to actually move to administrative reports this time. And item 3A, 2025 Blues and Brews debrief summary.
Great. In the admin reports, and I don't know if Stephanie's still here, but I appreciate her getting together with our community partners to provide an update, and I will let you lead the discussion, Stephanie.
Okay, well, I don't feel like I need to read it to you after a long meeting, but this year's Blues and Brews Festival went pretty smooth. There were some challenges with the weather and park facility conditions, which we worked through, but as most of you are aware, we had to do a weather evacuation on Saturday, which lasted less than an hour, and the show went on with the scheduled times for each set and a 30-minute curfew extension to 10:30, given the situation. The evacuation process went very smoothly, and the incident management team that works together on all of our large events has had some practice, but we're always looking to improve after we experience it, which seems to be annually, at least at one event per year. So still debriefing with that group on details of the evacuation and communications, but overall went smoothly. Of note, we did have some challenges with our fields because it was very wet. Not as muddy as we've seen in several years ago. We didn't have destruction like we could have had, but we did need to move programming off of Festival Field and Bear Creek Field for 2 weeks. We are excited to bring programming back to Town Park to those fields starting tomorrow with a adult soccer co-ed championship game and soccer club games this weekend as well. So we made use of Warner Field, the Oval, the Pavilion, and then we also made arrangements for Lawson Hill for the soccer club, and that's the town coordinated all those efforts. So no damage, but definitely impacts that resulted in some creative thinking for the rec team to reprogram or relocate certain programs, and then some maintenance on our end. And we'll take more maintenance efforts in the spring to deal with areas that needed already to be resodded. So with that, unless there's any questions.
I mean, the evacuation, I mean, I know that you're old hands at this point, unfortunately, but it was really smooth and I got just a ton of positive feedback about the geofencing messaging that was going out and how helpful it was for people that weren't actually in the park and thinking about going in, that the pre-alerts and pre-evacuation notices were fantastic. So,
Great. And we are aware that not everybody who received the geo-targeted evac, not everybody received the return to the park text, and Lindsay's working through that. Seemed to be about half and half just within our own incident management team. Half of us never got that return. So we know that that is something we want to communicate the same method for all the different messaging. So she's looking into that, but thanks for that feedback.
My one quick question is, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought waste diversion was a contract requirement for all festivals and we don't have data on this. Am I wrong about that?
So this is a summary of the debrief meeting, and they were not represented at the debrief meeting. Doesn't mean that it wasn't done. So we will get that data, but yes, it is a requirement.
Thank you.
Some events bring their subcontractor or partner to those meetings. This case that didn't.
Got it. Thank you.
okay. All right. Thanks, Stephanie.
You all.
Okay. Well, if we have nothing else, we can adjourn by mutual consent.
Guys, great meeting.